everybody. Welcome back to D&J's Epic Quest. My name is Justin, and this is
This is Derek. How you doing, buddy?
doing okay. Doing okay. Feeling good. You?
Doing well. Just kind of hunkered down, anticipating what's going to happen with this ice/snowstorm we're supposed to get tonight, but
Oh yeah, I heard about that. That'll be fun.
should be hitting you too, just
Oh
later.
yeah, yeah. There were talks today at work of whether they're gonna have a snow day tomorrow, or
Oh,
at least an
yeah,
early release. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
yeah. How was your Christmas and New Year's?
It was really chill. Unfortunately, due to the roads not being cleaned up very well, I didn't want to risk driving all the way down there. Plus, my dad, he had come down with COVID, so it was one of those things where it was just smarter to just stay home. So we just did the Christmas with the kids and I and the fam, and ate some good food and just kind of hung out. We were kidless over the New Year's, so we spent some time cleaning and watching TV shows. Yeah. You?
Exhilarating.
I know,
Uh,
right?
we, my sister was home. She just headed back to North Carolina today, but she was home. So we were at my parents' house for New Year's and um, hung out with them. Got to meet her husband finally. So it was a good time.
That's good. That's good. How long's it been since you've seen your sister?
Last year, about roughly this time last year. Well, it was a little later in the month, but we went down to Florida last year for like a family Christmas.
Yeah.
But her husband wasn't able to. He was going to be there, but then he's an Army Ranger, so he had to. They had last minute training. He couldn't end up making it. So like the last two times I was supposed to meet him, he had trainings come up, so he couldn't come. And so I give my sister shit. Oh, this big tough Army Ranger, he's just afraid to meet me.
Good old brotherly love.
Yeah, but no, he was a really good guy. He's good for my sister, I think. So
Have
it
you
was
and your
nice to meet him.
sister maintained like a close relationship now that you guys are adults? Or like talk every once in a while or yes and no?
Yeah, I mean, we talk every once in a while, but it's maybe once a week.
Got it. Got it.
Sometimes more than that. Just kind of depends.
That's fair. I don't talk to my sister at all. She's very bad about returning calls or text messages, which was fine. I don't really send them that often, but yeah.
Fair,
Yeah,
fair.
fair. But cool. Yeah, I guess yeah. Uneventful New Year, but I'm kind of learned to enjoy just not doing anything. Usually it's been running around, driving down to Mankato, visiting with my mom, and then going and seeing my dad, and then coming all back all within 8 hours, 8 to 10 hours, so it
It
just
gets to be
becomes
a
a
lot.
long day. Yeah. So post well.
Yeah. No, I feel it's nice to just keep it low key.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess you ready? Should we kick off chapter 6 here of Deadhouse Gates? I almost said Gardens of the Moon.
Well, yeah, we can do that. I think maybe before we get started, we'll just give Jan another shout out here as our so far only patron, but appreciate him being around. And I guess maybe if other people have ideas, maybe things they would like to see, pitch them our way. I'm sure we'd be open to it, and maybe we can incorporate that stuff and see what we can do, and maybe gain a few more patrons that way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, we are enjoying the support so far. It's nice to interact with Jan. He's a funny guy. I like him. Apparently, going back to our last episode, he's got a pie picked out for you, sir.
For me, no.
Yeah, he's got a pie. He's got a pie picked out for you.
He's got a pie picked out for one of
It's
us.
got your name on it. I saw it.
Yeah, my name that it will be in my hand going into your face.
You think so, eh?
I think I got a pretty good odds. I'd say 1 and 2 odds.
I have the same odds as you do. It's only a 50%
Hey,
chance.
hey,
So
I'll
you're
take those
telling
odds all
me
day
there's a
long.
chance.
Yep.
Oh, good shit. Good stuff. But yeah, I guess you wanna kick off our epigraph here, sir.
Yeah, it'll be good to get back into the main book here. It feels like it's been a bit. So, chapter 6 here of Deadhouse Gates, our epigraph reads: Early in Kellanved's reign, cults proliferated among the imperial armies, particularly among the Marines. It should be remembered that this was also the time of Dasim Ultor, First Sword and Supreme Commander of the Malazan forces, a man sworn to Hood. And that was from Duiker himself.
I feel like I remember Dasim kind of being once wasn't he just like he was a representative of Hood at one point in time, but then like renounced it. I feel like this is like early Gardens of the Moon. So I don't know, maybe Dasim is Hood. Crazier shit's happened.
He's sworn to himself.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I don't remember any of that stuff, so I don't have anything to combat your theory there.
I could very well be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that in the chapter with Gano's being being I guess Opan bringing back to life that whole chapter, I feel like they talked about Dasim and Hood a little bit, but yeah, I'm slowly starting to get the epigraph and how they tie in, not necessarily to the chapter, but like things that have happened. So I think that's kind of their purpose a little bit, is not necessarily their chapter related. They're just kind of things that have been happening, things that are, ongoing, so to speak.
Sure, I
But
got you.
are you ready to get into this crazy chapter?
I am ready. It's been a long time coming here. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I am too. I'm excited to read on as well. Like it's been driving me crazy to find out what's happening next. So
I know. Yeah, I've been reading the novelization for Alien here, and I'm just about done with that. And it's a pretty short, quick read here, so I'll be ready to get back into Malazan.
hell yeah. But here we go. Beneth sat at his table at Bulla's Inn, cleaning his fingernails. Felozin grew familiar with his poses as they portrayed his mood. She could tell the man was hot with rage, started by fear. The glass of wine sat untouched on the tabletop. Flies danced around the mug's ring. Felozin was staring at the insects, and a flood of horror returned to her mind. Memories from the day she had seen Hood's acolyte. Beneth makes a comment that Felozin appears that she's coming to her senses, and then slides her a bag of Durhang and tells her to kill it. Beneth watched as she packed the pipe. Felozin recalls events that have led her here. Bowden had been missing for 6 days. Salwork had called in Beneth a handful of times. Skullcap was nearly dismantled from the searching and the patrols. They even dredged Sinker Lake. Beneth took it personally. Beneth took it personally as his control over Skullcap was now compromised. He had called her back to his side, not for compassion purposes, but because Beneth suspected that she knew something about Bowden. Felozin recalls Heberick telling her about Salwork and Beneth. The ex-priest of Fenner had warned her that Beneth sought her back, but only to be able to deliver Felozin's demise. She recalls asking Heberick how he knew all this. Heberick explained that with Bowden's escape, it gave Beneth leverage over Salwork, leaving Salwork no choice but to grant Beneth more control and thus more knowledge. She recalls that the Durhang tea did a fair amount to dull her aches and pains from the beating she had unjustly received, but it had done little to dull her thoughts. In her flight of Heberick, her return to Beneth was a panicked necessity. He smiled as Felzin lit the bowl of Durhang. Beneth takes this moment to ask her that Bowden was not some dockside thug. While waiting for a reply, he spins the dagger once and then twice. Both times the point of the dagger faced him. He gets angry at this and sheathes his knife and grabs the mug to drink, the flies dispersing. Felozin tells Beneth that she knows nothing of Bowden. Beneth takes a long pause and studies her. Finally, he exclaims that if she doesn't know anything then she must be thick or willfully ignorant. Felozin said nothing as the numbness spread throughout her. Beneth asks her if it was him, and was it too much to surrender to be his? Is he the one to blame for how she is? After a back and forth on whose fault it was for Fellowson, he abruptly rose and began to tell her that there wasn't anything pleasant about tonight. The she guy has begun the beginning of summer, and her suffering until now was just a prelude. Unable to finish what he was saying because he peered down at her, took her arm and pulled her upright. Beneth had been granted to form a militia, and with slaves he had chosen. The militia patrolled the streets, and anyone caught outside the curfew would first be beaten by Beneth's crew, who would take pleasure in doing so, and then be executed by the guards. Beneth and Felsen joined the patrol squad, men she all knew, as her body was used to buy their loyalty to Beneth. The patrol saw a crowd of Dosai guardsmen opposite them. Gunup was among the Dosai. The Dosai gazed at the patrol as they walked by. Beneth hesitated, as if he wanted to speak with Gunup. Like a dull wind, Felsen could sense something was different. The patrol guard's chatter had reduced and signs of nervousness were observed. She pops a button of Durhang and lets it melt in her mouth. Beneth, seeing her do this, tells her that she reminds him of Salwork. Blinking as if confused, Beneth explains that when Salwork sees trouble, the more he shuts his eyes. Behind them, a loud shout followed by harsh laughter. Beneth halted his patrol, and Beneth made his way back to the crossroads they had just passed. From there, he could see Saruk's, a gambling establishment, and the Gunup's Dosai they had previously passed. Felsen dully observed the tension in Beneth's posture. Turning to the patrol, she begs them to go help him, as something doesn't feel right. The patrol tells her to shut the fuck up, as Beneth had given them no orders. The Dosai with crossbows were trained at Beneth. They formed a semicircle around him. Felsen again turns to the patrol and begs them to help. They scatter like roaches. Gunup taunts Felsen to join Beneth up here. Beneth turns to speak to her when a Dosai guardsman steps up and shatters his nose. Felsen turns and bolts, hearing crossbow bolts whiz past her as she ran. Out of breath, Felsen stops in an open area between two Malazan buildings. She could hear a horse's hooves pounding. A dozen paces ahead, she saw slaves running straight for her, chased by Dosai. The slaves were run down and brutally killed from behind. Two of the Dosai saw Felsen and started to race towards her. As they were about to strike, quarrels hit them in their chest. She turned around to see a line of Malazan troops reloading their crossbows, and then the second line stepping up to send a volley of quarrels at the Dosai. After a few rounds of this, the Dosai finally retreated and the Malazan troop advanced forward to her. Suddenly she hears a voice next to her head tell her to come with him, and when she turns to it, she recognizes it as Pella. Pella explains that defending the slaves is not the highest priority, and he grabs her arm gently. Pella announces that she is Beneth's woman. Pelazan replies that he is likely dead. Pella tells her that he was bloody, but he saw him not a moment ago. He was gathering his militia right at this moment. He swung to the others and explained that they would need Beneth. Never mind Salwork's orders. 3 of you are to come with him. The one named Raborid then gestured to 2 others. Whew. A little bit of a doozy. I totally forgot how long that one was.
Yeah, it sure opens up though, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you could totally just get a sense of. I almost kind of imagined, like, I guess in my head canon, you know those movies where like some type of explosion goes off and they're just in this moment where like everything's slow, they can't hear anything, there's just this like white noise of a hum. I kind of imagining like this is Felsen's perspective while all this is going on. Is she's just, you know, she's oblivious, but at the same time, like she's struggling really hard to, I guess, make connections to things. Like she's noticing things, but in a very type of dull stupor, you know?
Yeah, It I guess just kind of like it's almost like a haze still.
Right. Yeah. And I know that I thought that, or I associated Durhang to like cocaine or meth, but At the back, it says it's an opioid. I don't know if you caught that or saw that, but it makes a little bit more sense now, knowing that I can relate it to an opioid.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it doesn't really seem to, like speed her up, like meth or cocaine would or something. It
Right?
seems
Yeah.
to kind of put you out.
Yeah. Down and out. I don't know. It's interesting the dynamic between Beneth and Solwork, and I think it's interesting that there isn't. It's not there. This chapter or the section in this chapter, it very well could have gone where we have a scene where Beneth and Solwork are just kind of going at it, but it's interesting the way that you can kind of come up with the estrangedness between the two now just based on the way that it was set up here, if that makes sense.
Yeah, they definitely seem to be at odds with each other for some reason.
Yeah, and
And
it
I
all goes back to trust, I think, right? Like Solwork and Beneth don't trust each other.
Yeah, and it seems kind of weird because I mean they're on the same side, right? I mean I felt
Right.
that way. So why don't you have what did either one of you do that you don't have that trust?
I think it all comes back to Bowden. I mean, he's the common denominator here, right? Like, Solwork doesn't have the resources to go really looking for him in any type of, finite detail, whereas he can delegate that to Beneth. He doesn't want to, but therefore kind of is forced to give Beneth control. So, hey, go find a bunch of slaves, form your own militia, etc., etc.
It's a good point.
So I think that's kind of what's happening there is, I mean, I guess it really could be the sky's the limit as far
Yeah,
as, Solwork side, but
yeah,
yeah.
'cause I feel like something must have like they've known each other for a while, and I get the sense that they haven't trusted each other for a while. So they're maybe I don't know. You get bad vibes from people sometimes, and maybe that's all it was.
No, I see exactly where you're going. Bad vibes for both of them. More so Beneth because he's an asshole.
I mean, they're both assholes, but
So, right, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. And immediately I could tell that like some like shit was gonna go down in this chapter just based on the way that everything starts out here. So yeah, and it's interesting because Beneth seems to have maybe regrets. I don't know if that's the word I would use. I just can't find a better term, but it's turned from a, well, I guess it still is. It's for his benefit. Like he's still using her to try to get information about Bowden. So he's not really willing to let her go because he still has a use for her. And it's kind of, threatening there at the beginning. Like all the suffering she's gone through is just a prelude. Like I feel like that, yeah, she's suffered enough for a lifetime, 2 lifetimes.
yeah, yeah. I feel like even if he didn't have a use for her, he'd still keep her around. Just
Right.
it seems like that would be the type of guy he is.
I see that. I see that. But I guess it was a very action oriented section. I don't really have a ton of things. I could see it very cinematically playing out in my mind. Everything that's happening here from Beneth and their very opening conversation, and then confrontation with the Dosai. I feel like Beneth is dead. I mean, it just kind of he's just dropped like a bad habit. Like he got punched in the face, and then fellas in like, yeah, he's probably dead.
I think at the moment he's probably wounded. I mean, it sounds like he must have taken a crossbow bolt. But I do agree. I don't think he's gonna make it real long. So I don't know that he's dead quite yet, but I think he will be soon. And I
He's
won't lose
knocking
any
on
sleep.
wood's
I
door.
won't lose any sleep. So
No, no, good riddance. About
yeah,
time.
yeah.
About
The action is. I mean, it's a quick engagement and hard hitting. I'm trying to think of what to compare it to, and I'm not sure, but it sounds pretty brutal. You're just in the streets exchanging crossbow fire. Like, I mean, I wouldn't want to be standing on the front line,
no.
reloading while the other side's shooting at you. No, no thanks.
No, not at all. Yeah, it's and I mean, like, if you think about it, like, if you go back, I mean, I guess not that it's really a fault per se, but neither Beneth or Salwork took Dosai seriously. I mean, they saw signs of them getting, riled up, so to speak, but they just played it off as this is something that they do, you know? So had they paid more attention to it, could they have maybe come to a more peaceful resolution? I don't know. Given the atmosphere, I doubt it, but I thought it was brutal that Dosai aren't even sparing the enslaved, you know? Like they're running them down too because some of them are Malazan.
I think this was happening no matter what.
Right. Couldn't agree more, sir.
Anything else you want to talk about there?
Not that I can think of.
All right. I will start up my first section here. Section 2.
Sounds good, man.
The fire was spreading in Spit Row and spreading fast. Pella drug Fellison along, and Reberid bitched that there should have been more troops here by now. There were bodies in the street that they quietly sidestepped without stopping. Reberid was still ranting. Sourk will have every Dosai gutted and killed for 50 leagues. They were at Heberic's house. Pella told them to take defensive positions as he kicked in the door. Fellison didn't think anyone was home until Pella had Fellison pull the sheet that served as a room divider. Heberic was there, and Pella said he wasn't sure if he wanted Fellison along. Heberic only grunted and started to speak, but Pella stopped him before he could finish his sentence. He needed to rejoin the captain to stop the rebellion, but it was a good time for them. Heberic agreed and told Bowden to come out. Pella posed no risk to them. As Bowden stepped out of the shadows, Pella backed away and left. Fellison noted that Bowden was wet and asked if they were going to escape now. Heberic said yes, and that she would soon find out how. Bowden picked up a pack and tossed it to Heberic, who caught it. The sound it made tipped Fellison to the plan. She said they were going to swim in Sinker Lake. But why? There's only cliffs on the other side. Heberic said there are caves. Heberic said there are caves, and you can reach them when the water is low enough. Fellison blurted out that they needed to take Beneth. Heberic tried to stop her from talking, but she says that they owe him. In fact, Heberic wouldn't even be alive if it wasn't for Beneth. She says she will find him and meet them at the lake. Bowden says no, he will find them, and leaves. After he left, Fellison asks Heberic if she was a part of the escape plans. Heberic says that until tonight, she seemed like she was happy in Skullcap, and they didn't think she would be interested in leaving. He shrugged his shoulders and reiterated that Beneth provided for her. Fellison thought for a moment. She was of House Paran, her sister the adjunct. Her brother rode with the previous adjunct, and here she was, a spoiled little girl, a whore. She spoke one last sentence to Heberic. She said that he doesn't think much of her anymore, does he? Heberic did not reply.
Tough section.
Yeah, a lot. I mean, a lot and not a lot kind of happens. Now, after reading this, it felt kind of obvious what was what they were looking at Sinker Lake for, with the water level going down and everything. I feel like I don't know. Maybe we did talk about that before. It's been a while. I don't I don't quite remember now.
I'm pretty sure that you predicted that they were gonna that was gonna be their way out was Sinker Lake.
Maybe.
Which I didn't agree, or I didn't disagree with at all. So I mean, I feel like the setup was there. I feel like for the most part that was pretty obvious. But I mean, there could be other reasons too, I mean, maybe there's something in there that they could use to craft some type of material or create some type of poison, sleeping something, knock out some guards. I mean, there's tons of possibilities there. But yeah, it's I guess it's nice that there's some affirmation that, one, this is the plan that they were talking about when they were excluding Felizin in chapter 2 or 3, I think it was.
Back a little
So
bit.
yeah, a couple chapters ago. But I mean, I feel like regardless of their opinions, it sounds like they're doing the right thing for her.
Yeah, I think so. I still it's sad to see all the everything that Fellison's been through, but she's still with her senses dulled, I guess. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but I mean her mind is probably definitely not in the best place right now, but still to be observant enough to recognize that, hey, I probably wasn't actually a part of these plans to begin with. She's still pretty sharp for everything that she's been through, and pick up on something like that. I mean, it's kind of sad.
Yeah, it is sad. But I mean, it's just she's a fighter. She's the survivor, right? Like she's going to do everything that she can to confront her sister. Whether that is something that Bowden and Hebrick disagree on, I feel like they could have done or tried a lot harder to maybe protect her a little bit, take her under their wing a little bit more than they did. I feel like they were pretty just quick to like, oh, okay, well, this is where she's going. So, I think it's interesting from the author's perspective to take a character that you want to see well, and at the same time you're questioning her decisions a little bit. Like it's an interesting contrast. Is
Yeah.
all that, like I would say for the most part she's a well liked character, but as we've heard about some of the online debates about Malazan, clearly on both sides of the ball, to cause up that type of a stir for a character that you would regard as well liked is interesting, and kind of genius on Erickson's side.
Yeah, you're talking about her being strong, and I agree with that. I think she is, but right now, I feel like you see a little bit of self pity, um,
Yeah.
which
Well, and
who
the
would
Durhang and
blame who would
right.
blame somebody with what she's gone through? But yeah, it's kind of creeping in there. And I guess we saw it a couple chapters ago too. Where she said she was gonna see Hebrick back in chains if it was the last thing she did, or however she worded that. She was
Right.
angry then, but I mean, also, still kid. They're gonna have a wide range of emotions, so it's hard to blame her for being all over the place.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. And the Durhang is clearly an escape from what she's putting herself through.
Yeah,
It's her way to
right.
cope with the suffering, the pain, etc. To where it has led to addiction, but I understand why she's doing it.
Yeah.
Oh
Um,
God, these conversations just get me so bummed out.
well, have a beer, Justin.
I wish I had one. But yeah, I guess at the end of the day, I don't know if I would say proud, but I'm glad that Heberick and Bowden have had a change of heart here at the end of the section. So yeah,
Yeah, I don't. As far as I guess how I'm not sure if I know how you mean.
by bringing her along.
Oh, gotcha. Sorry, I maybe
Yeah,
misheard a name in my head there. But yeah,
putting
I 100%. I'm glad they're bringing her with too. I think if they didn't, she'd be dead probably just like everybody else.
and I mean like they can't deny the things that they've done, whether they agree with her or not about those choices. Like she has helped them out. They
Yeah,
disagree with the methods that she's doing, but at the end of the day, like she has helped them out. So she does have a point there, even though it is kind of, as you said, self-pitying a little bit. But I think that her drive and her fight, her will to live to see and confront her sister is stronger than her self-pity at this point.
yeah. I think it's just kind of one of those things that it's just kind of there for a fleeting moment or two.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, I guess I don't have anything else to talk about as far as that section goes. I don't know if you did or not.
No, there wasn't. There wasn't anything else that I really picked out in there. I mean, we're already starting to see some of the aftermath with bodies in the streets. It's pretty
There's
grim
no It's
looking.
all chaos and no order, right?
Yeah, yeah, a lot of chaos. Yeah,
Right. Yeah, and this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning.
yep. So if you're ready to move on here, yeah, I'm ready for you.
Sounds good, man. The western half of Skullcap was ablaze. Hebrick and Felsen made their way along Work Road. On their way to Sinker Lake, they had heard clashes in the distance and witnessed downed Malazan, Dosai, and horses. Felsen hesitates as they pass Bula's Inn. Hebert hooks his arm in hers and tells her that she doesn't want to go there, as Gunnup had hit that place hard earlier. Work Road was empty all the way to Three Fates Fork. To the left, they could see the glimmer of the lake. Hebert leads them into the rushes and tells her that they'll wait there. The mud felt cool on her feet. She asks a question about swimming into a cave. Hebrick explains that they'll use an old mine shaft at the end. And at the end are supplies for them. And after that, they'll cross the desert until they reach the inside coast where they'll be picked up by a boat. Fellowson questions how and who. Hebrick explains that it was an old friend with a ton of loyalty. Fellowson asks if Pella was the contact. Hebrick says he was, and then explains that he first attempted to approach her, but she didn't catch on. So Pella found Hebrick himself. Fellowson doesn't remember any of this, and Hebrick explains that it was a quote by Kellenved in Duiker's historical writings, to which Pella tried to get her attention. Hebrick goes on to explain all that Duiker has done for him, and that if he lives and sees Duiker face to face, then he'll owe him an apology. A buzzing frenzy sound reached them. Crouching in fear, Fellowson asks what that sound was. After a moment of listening, Hebrick tells her that it's blood flies, and to quickly cover herself in mud, and then cover him. Gusts of insects came into view, racing towards them. Frantic, she dug her fingers in the mud, slapping mud on her arms, face, and neck. She then gets in the water and tells Hebrick to get closer. He comes closer and tells her that they'll dive into the water and that she needs to get out of there and cover her legs in mud. Before she could react, the swarm was all around them, making the air barely breathable. From the first bite, Fellowson jumped from the water and clawed mud onto her blood-covered legs. Insect crawled through her hair, then covered her hair with mud. The blood flies rode into her open mouth, biting. Fellowson had to chew them to kill them, tasting their acidic juices. They were all around her eyes, screaming as she scraped mud under her face. The blood flies were in her ears. She's then scraped them away and then put mud under her ears. Out of nowhere, handless arms wrapped around her and told her that she could stop screaming now. Fellowson lay in the fetal position amongst the reeds. Hebrick tells her it's okay and that she can open her eyes. The swarm had passed. Hebrick snaps and tells her to get up, because each bite has a blood fly egg in it. You need to kill those eggs. He tells her that he has a tincture. Fellowson groans on the ground. He kicks and pushes her. She could barely open her eyes, but when she did, she could see a blue glow around Hebrick's tattoos. He had been unbitten. She asks for the tincture, and he tells her where his pouch is. Fellowson puts the tincture into every bite from the blood flies, slowly driving the larvae out of the holes. With help from Hebrick around her ears and eyes, with a look of compassion, Hebrick tells her that he is sorry. Surprised by this, Fellowson asks what is the matter. Shaking his head, he explains that the bloodfly bites have left pockmarks all around her eyes and it was bad. Almost wanting to laugh, she tells Hebrick that she's seen it before. Hebrick agrees and tells her that bloodflies usually don't swarm like that, and it must have been from the fire. He promises that he will get her the proper healing from someone who can access the Denal Warren. She doesn't respond to this, but rather tells him that she feels sick. Hebrick assures her that it's the tincture she had to put in her mouth. Fellowson comments on Fenner being forgiving. Hebrick is perplexed and can think of many high priests of Fenner that would agree with him in that Fenner was anything but forgiving. Fellowson tells him that Hebrick may need to give thanks and offer a sacrifice, and it must have been a great offense that drove Hebrick away from his god. He did not reply to that. Riders approached, and it was a group of Malazan with Salwork at the helm. He sat staring at two of them before finally telling them that when they get to the rim, to look south. Surprised, Hebrick asks why he is letting them go. Salwork tells Hebrick not for him and glances at Fellowson. Before departing with his troop, she instinctively knew that they all would die. Pella, Salwork, and the Malazans. Bowden appeared from some reeds nearby. She asked where Beneth was. Bowden responds that Beneth is dead. Pain rose up within her, an anguish that was more shattering than anything she'd had yet suffered. Hebrick clears his throat and tells them that they had best get moving. She followed them down to the edge of the lake as Bowden strapped a bladder full of air to Hebrick's chest. She realized she would have to share with Bowden. Thinking to herself now Beneth was dead, and fighting with that thought, she resumes thinking that he has to be alive, and that Bowden probably didn't even look for him. Sinker Lake washed the mud and tincture from Fellowson's body, and it was not nearly enough. Oh, it just keeps coming. Ugh.
Kid can't catch a break?
No, not at all. Not at all. And I mean, what a drastic comparison between like you imagine somebody who's, lack of a better term, born with a silver spoon in their mouth and then gets thrown into all this shit fest. Like just the stark contrast between what life you used to have versus the life you have now, And it's surprising that she's just got so much fight. I'd be ready to die at this point. Be like, just kill me. Just
It'd be
fucking kill me.
it'd probably be easier at this point.
Exactly. But I guess the one thing that or the couple of things that I pulled out of here was that I guess it was nice to know that we were right about Pella. One, not only that he was the one that was looking for Hebrick, but that when we were going through him talking or trying to get Belazin to tell him where Hebrick was, that we were onto that too. It was nice to have some affirmation there.
Yeah, definitely.
How did you feel about Hebrick and the Duiker and Hebrick needing or wanting to apologize the next time they're face to face?
I guess I'm not really sure if I remember how I felt just since it's been, I don't know, a week and a half since I've read this chapter. I don't know that I had any specific thoughts on it, to be perfectly
So
honest.
no, it's so cool. Maybe this will jog your memory, but Hebrick explains to Fellowson how Duiker spoke on behalf of Hebrick's trial, which that's not new information. What is new, and maybe it's just because I'm not remembering, but it sounds like Hebrick denounced Duiker's work as written lies.
So the only thing I could think is Duiker was like Heberick's, like basically like lawyer, right? More
Right.
or less. So what I'm thinking is if he says, "Oh, this is all just a bunch of lies," I mean, that's just the defense. Then maybe he doesn't really believe that, but this is what he's saying to try to get him off, or or a lighter sentence, something like that. Or maybe he does believe it. I guess they did say that things were of a differing opinion. That doesn't mean just because you have a different opinion doesn't mean you turn your back on a friend.
Yeah. Yeah. I just find it curious. I mean, like, to me, I feel like they are both writing different histories. But to me, the question remains is who is actually telling the truth, right? It's like when your kids break the TV, right? You have no idea which one did it. So you're just like trying to figure out the truth, right? So I think it's interesting. I mean, I don't know. I guess it just goes to show Duiker's character in the face of adversity, a differing opinion, as you stated, that he's willing to offer him help. But again, it kind of makes me go back to kind of what I've commented on earlier about Duiker is that unless he's just simply writing down what he's told to write down, whether that's true or not. You know what I mean? Or like he's writing what is the stretched truth to make the empire look better. You know what I mean? Like we've all had those jobs where we have to do something that maybe isn't necessarily the right way or the correct way, but we have to do it anyway because that's the way that we're told.
Yeah, I get you.
I guess
Yeah,
that's what I'm associating it with. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. But yeah,
I'm understanding what you're saying. I get it. Yeah, I think that makes some sense for sure.
I'm curious as to how this. I mean, history is definitely the theme um, around this, and I think that Hebrick and Duiker, on top of being so far mainer characters, that's not a word, but more prominent characters in this book so far, I definitely feel like they both have a role to play.
You did a goodest job there, Justin.
Shuttest the fuckest up.
Yeah, I think they're both pretty central type characters to the story, and it's going to be interesting to see where they go, if there's going to be some type of disagreements between them that pop up or anything like that.
Right. Or just like a clash, or I mean, honestly, it could be really anything. But yeah, I'm just curious to see where that pans out, or how that pans out, and how that ties in to one thing or another.
We'll just have to read and find out.
There it is. There it is. Take a drink, everybody.
Took a little bit to get that in.
Yeah. I mean, we're only in the fourth section. Or no, third section.
Third.
Third section. Sorry. Giving you too much credit there.
Oh, yeah. Don't do that. Then I'll expect it.
Uh, I, for one, was super grossed out when I was reading all of the larvae coming out of all of the bite marks. Like, can you just imagine, like, your mouth, your ears, all around your eyes, like, just like having to bite and kill, crush the blood flies in your mouth? Like, just it was just so grossly descriptive. I loved it and hated it at the same time.
Yeah, it was gross. They reminded me of like killer bees and just their ferocity, but obviously
Right.
they've got kind of different motives. Yeah, that would be miserable. First, you got these things biting you, which I kind of imagine similar to being bitten by like a horse fly. Those things hurt.
Right. Yeah.
And then it lays an egg in you, and it's gonna eat its way out.
Right, thus dissolving your flesh while you're still alive,
Yeah, so to get it out, you got to use this some sort of shit that drives them out. It doesn't sound like a pleasant experience.
No. And two things. And I don't know if you caught this, but it wasn't until I think my third read through of this chapter. But at the beginning, you remember how Fellowsen is kind of like telling us, the reader, how she's able to read Beneth's moods. She makes this comparison about larvae coming out of blood flies bites at the very opening like paragraph of the chapter. Go back and read it. It's crazy. But and it just I didn't even realize how much foreshadowing that was. And it's almost like
Hmm.
it's
Yeah,
almost like a comparison of his wrath manifesting on fellas in here, which hate that she's going through it, but I guess that's just kind of the foreshadowing I caught.
I just looked at that paragraph, and yeah, I definitely did not catch that or remember that at all. That's
Yeah,
yeah, that's something.
it was just some cool foreshadowing, even though it ends up being a disastrous for fellas in here. But
Right?
the tincture, apparently it's from a plant native to the seven cities. So I wonder if it's the same thing that Mappo was using when he was like healing his bite mark from the Divers. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, you can only use so much of it, right? Or use it once a day or something. I don't remember what it was called either, but
Right, which is why she felt sick and nauseated.
yeah, it could be the same thing. I don't know. We'd have to go back and check, I guess.
I think I'm assuming that they're the same.
I don't know if it's
But
anything that will come up further or be of significance, but it'd be cool to, if you picked up on that.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, it seems to be multi-purposed. I'm sure that in some way, shape, or form it may come up again, because I mean that's twice now. But I mean, it could be like the bone phone too. So
It's the Tylenol plant.
right, right. Any thoughts on and Fenner and keeping Hebrick from getting bit by blood flies? Did you find that interesting?
I did, and I didn't really have any ideas as far as how that or why it worked that way, but it did seem odd for sure.
Well, right, especially because like when Felsen brings up this to Hebrick and Fenner being a forgiving god, he seems to kind of get a little like sore, like a little sore spot for Hebrick to hear this in this moment. Like kind of wondering either what Hebrick perceived that Fenner did. Like we know that the gods are kind of somewhat brutal, so to speak, and they find laughter and mockery, not mockery, but just entertainment from it, so to speak. Kind of wondering what went on there. So I'm hoping that we get a little bit more from that.
Yeah, I agree. I'd be curious as to how that works. What's driving that?
Yeah, I guess the only other last thing that I have about this section was what do you think of Sawwork letting them go?
I'm not sure. What was he going to do with them if he kept them? I think it's kind of just goes back to what Felsen was thinking, that she knew they were going to die. So it's just maybe it's just his, I guess, gift to them, giving them their lives. I don't know.
So do you think it was like an act of just one last act of sympathy?
Could be, yeah. I don't think I don't remember. Did it say how many people were with him?
I don't remember. I feel like it was like a handful.
Yeah, I mean, and you're in this hostile city. You can't afford to have to babysit somebody. There's just
Well,
you
true.
can't.
And it kind of goes that relates back to what Pella was saying is that they don't have all the resources to kind of keep the slaves alive. So,
Right.
yeah. So maybe it isn't sympathy and rather just a strategic I can't watch you.
Yeah, just logistics.
Yeah, I was hoping that maybe this was just Salwark having a change of heart, but maybe not.
Yeah, I wonder if he had more men, maybe he does something different, but maybe not.
Right.
I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I guess the only other thing is Bowden telling Fellowson that Beneth was dead. Like, do you think that Fellowson is right in her thinking that he didn't even look for her or look for him? Or do you think that Bowden actually did attempt to look for Beneth?
I'm not sure. I do think he's probably dead, but I don't know. I mean, with all the craziness going on in the city, how would you go
And
about
Beneth,
finding a singular
right,
person?
right, exactly. And Beneth is kind of a target to a lot of people. Slaves are going to be looking for his protection. The ones that he used to form a militia are going to look to him for orders. And then, of course, the Dosai as well. Like Salwark and Pella, the Malazans, and Beneth are their biggest targets right now.
Yeah. So I mean, what do you think that Bowden looked for him or no?
I don't think that he did.
I think I would probably lean that way. I think Bowden's got street smarts. He probably knew it wasn't worth it, but he's just gonna say he did it for the show.
But then where did he go? Why not just hang out with them
I don't
and
know.
say it's like,
He could have just hid out in the behind the house or whatever for all we know. I don't know because I think if he said no, you're not gonna go look for him. No, I'm not gonna go look for him. He's dead. He was gonna be met with resistance from Fellowson. Like, oh no, we gotta try. And it was probably just an easier white lie to be like, yeah, I'll go look for him, even
right.
though he's probably dead. And he could have just walked around the block quick and then headed down to the lake and waited for him.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm aligning with that one.
Sweet, sweet.
But yeah, I guess lots of shit happened. I can't help but feel bad for fellows, and she's definitely getting the shit end of the stick. But I guess I can only hope that it gets better for her.
Yeah,
But
when does
I
that when
think,
does that roller coaster start to swing up a little bit for her instead of just going down?
ugh, who knows? Hopefully this is the end of it.
I doubt
But
it.
yeah, I'm not getting good vibes. So I think this all feels like set up. And again, the whole thing at the end of the prologue where she's just like, "This is the many lessons, blah blah blah." Like these are definitely lessons compared to her upbringing.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
These
they
are
are.
things that she never had to anticipate or think about.
Right.
But yeah, I guess I'm done ranting. If you want to go on to our next section here.
All right. The cold water was trying to pull Fellison under. She said she didn't see any caves. Bowden was surprised she could see anything at all. Her eyes were so swollen. She didn't reply. She thought that surviving is all that mattered. Tavor could witness all the scars she gave her when they met, and she took her revenge. Heberick said the opening to the cave was under the surface. Bowden will be the first to go. He will have a rope tied to his waist. Hold on to that, or you'll go to the bottom. She asks how far down. Heberick says 7 or 8 feet down, then another 15 feet or so until she surfaces again. They heard the last screams from the burning town die out. The quiet didn't feel real. She felt the rope pull her. Heberick gave her instructions to stab the bladder, to sink, then follow the rope. As she went under, she dropped the knife. Her lungs were burning for air, but she could see light and kicked hard for it. She was grabbed by hands and hauled out of the water. Bowden said she lost his knife, didn't she? She only replied, "Hood take you, Bowden." Next, he hauled in Heberick. Bowden said that there must have been trouble up top as their supplies were in the cave. Bowden told him to rest. He was going to scout ahead. Fellison could sense Heberick was uneasy. She asked if he was suspicious. Heberick said Salwark said to look to the south, so they should wait for Bowden to come back. Fellison said she was cold. Heberick said they didn't have room for extra clothes and that they would soon dry out. Bowden returned. He said Dosen Pali is 30 leagues away, but he could see it glow. Heberick said not even a firestorm would be visible. Bowden said Yeah, that's true enough, but this wasn't a storm. This was a mage battle. Bowden said it has come. Fellison asked what he was talking about. He said 7 cities has risen. The whirlwind has started. Justin, can you taste that pie yet?
No, no. On the contrary, can you taste the pie? This doesn't mean shit. It doesn't mean shit.
So it's just all a coincidence or what?
I think the whirlwind is just the people's mentality. It is a whirlwind of emotions.
Sure, but it's still like all these people are going to be acting in a common goal in this uprising.
Right. Does that mean the spirit of Dryjana has been released from the book? No, it definitely doesn't. The spirit of Dryjana isn't found in some book. It's found in the hearts and minds of the people rebelling, trying to win back their city from Malazan control.
Then what would they need the book for at all?
They don't. The book is just some type of, it's like the Bible, right? Like, do we need the Bible to believe in God or to believe in whatever God exists? No. It's just the it's just the physical thing that you have that is an embodiment of a spirit or what have you.
But how could you believe in God if you don't believe in the Bible? Like those two things go hand in hand. God in the
But
sense of the Bible, I guess.
well, right. But I mean, like, just because you have a Bible doesn't necessarily mean that something is going to come out of it and wreak havoc. You know, it's the stories, it's the history. It's you know what I mean? Like all this ties into the theme of the book. It doesn't necessarily have to be this physical manifestation of Dryjana. It's the mindset.
I guess we'll see. I think there's some sort of magical element to it that it's more than just a state of mind. I do agree with you. I think that's part of it, but I think there's more to it than that.
I mean, I'm just gonna go back to and maybe we'll get to this later, but I mean we're talking about it now, so it doesn't really matter. But the saying of Dryjana, the prophecy that she spoke through the little boy seer, said nothing about a book. It said about two histories awakening and memories being regained. So that's kind of where I mean, again, it's so dumb. Like, hey, I've got this book. I know it releases this demon or this spirit that is going to wreak havoc. I want to find this person who can release it, but I'm not going to give them the fucking book, you know? It's like I don't know. It just seems like a dumb move. Like so dumb. The Red Blades, they don't seem dumb. They seem impatient, but they don't seem dumb. It's just where I'm going. I mean, like I said, I think that this is intentional though. Like I think that as you're reading this book, you're gonna have some people who are reading it that side with you, Derek, and then there are gonna be some that side with me that like, okay, yeah, totally. There's this thing that got released, and now this is why we have essentially this chapter. But I think, to be fair, I feel like most people would align with you, which makes me a little bit nervous because, like, every time I read this chapter, I'm like, oh, maybe he is right. But it's all good. I'll take a pie. I'll take a pie. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I feel like it's too obvious to me.
I guess we don't have too much of a choice here. We just got to keep reading.
Right. It's like xenomorphs when they're hiding, right? Like you don't expect them to be part of the piping. You expect them to come out of the shadows. It's that type of thing.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what.
You
Obviously,
got no
neither one of us
rebuttal
is
then,
yet.
huh?
What's
So
that?
you got no rebuttal. So that means you're getting the pie.
I don't think so because I think the Shaik is coming back.
Maybe. We'll also get to that too, because that also happens in this chapter.
All in good time. All in good
All in
time.
good time. I mean, I don't know. I guess I don't have a lot to comment on that particular section. It was pretty transitional, just one piece to the next piece, and just kind of, again, this whole chapter was very cinematic to me. Like every section I could just see very visually.
Yeah,
So,
I think the one thing that stuck out to me most was when it talks about they hear the last screams from the burning town die out. So I just think like, well, how this all happened so fast. This uprising in this city, the takeover and just how brutal and quick it was. That I feel like everything that's taken place so far, like, what do you think has elapsed for time? Like an hour, if that?
Yeah, maybe an hour, maybe hour to two, an hour or two. I mean, from what I understand, I mean, there's more enslaved there than there are like guards or Malazan guards, so to speak. So, and the Dosai were, I guess, I don't remember. They were there as just commoners, right? Like they weren't guards, they weren't the enslaved. They were just kind of, like the local business, so to speak, in the mines. This is where you go to gamble. A Dosai owns that establishment.
Yeah,
So,
and I guess we can say rip to Bowden's knife. That's gone. So
hmm
bummer.
yeah. Ready to move on?
Ready to move on.
Yeah. Duiker and Culp sat staring at the hog boat from the dock. Duiker climbed down into it. Culp was staring down at him and asked where he bought the boat. Duiker glanced up at him and asked if he could repair it. Duiker climbs back up to the dock and tells Culp that he sees his point and that Duiker was assured that the boat was seaworthy. It was clear the boat wouldn't get them across the strait. Culp asks what they were to do now. Duiker says that they wouldn't get them across the strait. Duiker says that they need to go back to the inn as a new plan was required. They made their way up the docks and walked along the dirt road that would pass for the village thoroughfare. They entered the inn and sat at the table they occupied before. A crowd of Malazan soldiers sat around a different table. It was only a matter of time before they approached. Culp gestures to a barman for some ale, and then leads towards Duiker and tells him that they have two problems. One, we don't have a boat, and two, there's going to be questions, and soon. Duiker tells Culp to chill the fuck out and let him think. No villagers were present at this bar. Culp tells Duiker what a strange night it was, to which Duiker agrees. A scrape of a chair alerted their attention to the ranking Malazan that now approached them. Culp had noticed that the man once held the rank of sergeant, but was clearly no longer. With some choice words, Culp tells the man to watch his words, or he'll continue to go backward. The corporal is confused by this, and Culp explains to the corporal his observations. The man seemed unaffected and clearly wouldn't go back to his table. The corporal said that Culp was 7th Army, likely a deserter. Culp raised his eyebrows and told the man that he was the 7th's only cadre mage. The corporal slams his hands on the table and threatens Culp that if he were to open his warren, he would find his ears cut off. Duiker attempts to mediate, but it is quickly told to shut the fuck up. Distant shouting interrupted them, and the corporal yelled for a man named Truth to go check out what's happening. Duiker explains to the corporal that they are trying to buy a boat. Truth came barging back in, cursing. Truth explains that there's an armed mob outside, and that they aren't interested in talking. He explained that the mob split into two, some of them headed in the direction of Rip Path. A sailor addressed the corporal, named Gessler, and explained that they would torch Rip Path. Gessler, the corporal, tells them to arm up. Gessler tells a sailor named Stormy to find out the leader of the mob. A crossbow seeming to appear from nowhere, he took position at the front door. Gessler tells Culp that he's likely not to rip his ears off if he were to open his warren now. Culp makes the observation that Gessler has made some enemies here. The corporal smiles and tells Duiker that it was only a matter of time. Gessler asks Stormy if he's found the leader yet. Stormy replies that he has, and that the leader is keeping his distance. Gessler tells everyone that they can't wait, and get to the back door. Cool, damp air and smells of moss and stone entered the room. Duiker looked at Culp, who was shaking his head. Rising, the historian tells Gessler that they have a mage. Suddenly, a roar rushed from the street outside. The inn started buckling as occupants were thrown from their places. The inn was rising from the front as everyone slid towards the back of the inn. Duiker landed on some seaweed, and Culp landed on top of him, knocking the wind out of him. Duiker tells Culp to do something. The mage pulls the historian upright and shoves him and tells him to run. The sorcery at this moment stops, and then the inn comes tumbling down, legs splitting as it hits the ground. Running alongside Duiker was Stormy, who said that he wasn't, or that he was there to help them, and that Gessler had gone ahead. At this point, Duiker noticed Culp wasn't next to him. Duiker asks where the fuck Culp went, and Stormy replies that he likely went out to go sniff out the other mage. They eventually reached the strand, and they could see Gessler and the sailors were closing in on the locals that had put themselves on the dock between the boat and the ensuing sailors. On the opposite side, they could see a stretch of beach that curved southwards towards Hisar. Duiker stops to peer at the smoke-filled sky. Stormy followed Duiker's gaze to Hisar in flames. Dryjana had come, and Stormy guessed we wouldn't be taking Duiker to Hisar. Duiker says no, fuck that, and that he's got to go back to Coltane and his horse, and get his horse. Stormy doubts that, because they ride camels and eat horses, so it's likely that Duiker's horse isn't even around. Stormy reaches out to grab Duiker's arm, but managed to break free and bolts from the direction of the scrap that had started near Rippath. With a moment's hesitation and a growl, he darts after Duiker. A surge of sorcery ignited the air above, followed by a shriek. As Duiker ran, he thought if Culp was delivering or dying. He stayed running on the beach until he judged he was opposite of the stables. Stormy then was next to him stride for stride. He tells Duiker that he'll just see that he makes his way safely. After frantic introductions and gratitudes from the two, they slowed as they slipped through a couple of huts. They sat watching the shadows. A few paces from the street, the air blurred and Culp appeared. Cape scorched and face fire burnt. Culp asks what they are doing there. There's a high mage prowling around, and Hood knows why he's here. The problem is he knows that I am here. As Duiker began to say, we need to, a course-curating flame exploded around them, flung all three of them to the dirt, laying in agonizing pain, felt within Duiker's bones. The sorcery was suddenly gone. A hand clutched his collar, and he could hear Culp tell him that he slapped back with enough to sting. Culp said they need to get to Gessler's boat. Duiker told him to go with Stormy, and that he was taking the horses. Culp stared at the man with a nod goodbye. He was pulled away by Stormy. Culp and Stormy booked it down the beach. Gessler and the sailors were in trouble. Stormy sprung into gear and fired a quirl into the mob. He then approached the mob fighting, its way towards Rippath. Culp stood there thinking whether or not to use sorcery, as he wouldn't want to bring out the high mage to his location. Against his better judgment, he raised his arms and sent a wall of fire at the mob. The mob split and ran. The wall of fire chased them down the beach. Stormy confronts Culp about being able to do that this whole time. Culp tells him that it was simply an illusion. Culp tells everyone to be quiet. The high mage was on the beach. Rippath slowly waded out into open waters. Culp opened his horn and threw random sounds here and there to deceive the high mage. This worked as flashes of sorcery were seen where the random sounds had been thrown. Just like the silence of the night returned, truth held the tiller as they sailed. Far to the south, they could see the glow of Hisar burning. Culp knew that the seven cities had risen in mutiny. Culp tells everyone that they can relax. The high mage has lost interest. He tells Gessler that they need to head to the Otaterral coast. After some resistance from Gessler and the crew, Culp reveals that they are picking up a high priest of Fenner, and that they shouldn't anger him. All three of the crew started grinning. Culp asks them what the fuck is so funny. They tell him that they are Boar Company, of the disbanded First Army, before Lucine had crushed the cult. Gessler said that it hasn't stopped them from following Fenner. The corporal asks Culp to simply point the way and tells Truth to sail in that direction. Culp finally relaxed and asked the crew if anyone else needed to change their pants.
That was a doozy.
Yeah, and a lot of fucking just intensity, right? Like when the whole wave of sorcery hits this, what I imagine to be like an open-ended hut, like the windows aren't actually sealed, they're just open,
Yeah.
some type of like house that sits on top of the water that has stilts or on top of the sand. Just when the wave of sorcery hits, I wasn't expecting that to come. So it was just, yeah, just the intensity of this chapter and particularly of this section is just that much more escalated.
Yeah, and like you said before, it's very cinematic, which makes it fun to read when it's just that vivid.
Right, because you could just imagine every little small detail, like from the mob outside to, just even the very beginning when they're in the boat and Culp is like, "What the hell are you doing? This is a shit boat. This isn't going to get us across." And then all that they wanted to do was just create a new plan to get to the Ototero coast. And now that just sounded so Minnesotan there. Coast. Fuck. Get to
Don't
the
worry about it, man.
Ototero. Yeah, and just they ended up improvising. Just such intensity, and I didn't even go into any level of any detail, but just the part where the sorcery reaches down into Duiker's bones. Like that was just, man. I can, if words had pain, that would hurt.
Yeah, yeah, it was rough. And just going back to where you're talking about the boat, I was thinking, there's my Minnesotan sound there.
Yeah.
I like there's a little bit of comedy there when one of them says their warrant isn't in ship repair or whatever. I can't remember exactly how it was worded, but that was
Yeah,
funny.
yeah.
Just a little light comedic relief in what's a pretty tense and really life-threatening situation.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, even, the section after this is just on the same amount of lines, and I kind of almost question Duiker a little bit. Like, why is he separating? I mean, like, I know that he wants to check on Coltane, and that seems to be his only motivation, but why? It's not like they're friends or anything. I mean, for a historian who doesn't do very well in battle, like he seems to like be pretty loosey goosey, when it comes to, I don't know, making the right call. I feel like the wise decision would be to stay in the numbers.
Unless I don't know, maybe he's just got a feeling about Coltane. I don't know. We haven't seen him in a while,
No, we
or,
haven't.
or have not seen much of him.
But also, what do we and maybe just being a devil's advocate to myself, we know Duiker, and I feel like it's at the end of this section where, and I didn't summarize it, but Culp and Duiker are basically before they leave, just like, oh, well, just do your best to disguise yourself as one of them, which is ultimately what he ends up doing. And we know based on that trader's camp that he was in when he witnessed the divination that he's able to fit in locally very well. Like he can easily pass for someone who is, I guess, for Dryjana.
Oh yeah, yeah, he can. Yeah, it was believable to the locals for sure.
Right. So I think that plays to just how intelligent he is.
He's got some smarts for sure.
So I thought that another little piece of humor in here is that Culp had a spell roll on him, is what he explained to Duiker and Stormy, enough for him to be the shriek that Duiker heard. I don't know if you caught that or not. Apparently, he shit his pants too.
I mean, hey, like he's alive, so
Yeah, I would be shitting my pants as well. I don't know if I'd be able to hold that in. I would just let her go.
you can get different pants, but
But
if
just like the way that that's described, a spell rolled on you. Like, can you imagine? Like, I don't know. I guess I just go to like if I were to be ran over by like one of those construction machines with the giant cylinder in the front,
oh
like a
yeah,
pavement. Yeah,
yeah, flat. I don't know what the hell I know what you're talking about, but yeah.
yeah.
Eh,
Like just imagine that, but with just sorcery. Like, I just thought it was an interesting word. Roll had a spell roll on him. There's so many other adjectives that he could have used.
yeah, there was.
it's just very specifically unique, and I'm drawn to it for some reason.
I kind of had this vision in my head of almost like a wave in the ocean just pounding you into the sand and grinding you up. This is kind of what I
Yeah,
envisioned.
but I guess it's funny that like I guess I don't know what to believe. Culp, and I guess the way that Culp's mage ability is pretty like lackluster, but he was enough to send enough to bite back, which makes it seem that he's actually a lot stronger than he should be.
He definitely seems competent, or maybe I guess adequate. Maybe he's not the strongest, but he can hold his own.
Yeah, that's true.
I really liked
But
in this section where they get in the ship or boat and they kind of push off the dock or whatever, and they're all just holding their breath and silent while the mage is trying to like find them, and Culp's throwing out like random sounds in random places. Like I thought that was really cool. It was just like that. I could probably envision that the most out of anything in this section.
yeah, no, I agree. That was really cool to just see. And of course, with everything being cinematic, you see this happening, right? Like I'm imagining it is dusk, right? And they're sailing away from the docks, and Culp is just throwing these random sounds here and there, and you just see like fireworks kind of in the night sky lighting it up.
Yeah,
I also thought that just like that, it went to the high mage has given up on them, and now there's just the silence of the night. And the scene was just, it was so vivid and tension filled. And it just reminded me of like the horror you feel when watching a horror movie, not really knowing like what's going to come next. Just that like tension in the moment of the threat is gone, but now what happens after that?
it's a different kind of tension.
Yeah. I guess yeah, it was a very long chapter, but it was very very fast paced and action oriented. I guess the only other thing that I can think of is, what do you think about this disbanded First Army that are all followers of Fenner? Like that's pretty coincidental, right?
I was gonna ask you what you thought if you didn't bring that up. Yeah, do you think Hebrick's going to be excited to see these guys? Do you think he knows who they are or of them? And vice versa. Do you think they're going to be excited to see Hebrick? Because it sounds like Hebrick must be pretty well known. Like I would think, like if you heard or if a guy gets his hands cut off, people are probably going to know about that. It's going to make the news, right?
Yeah,
Like
but
that.
Culp didn't reveal that to these guys though. He just said a high priest of Fenner, which isn't true anymore. He used to be a high priest.
True, but once they see him, though, I would think they would probably recognize him.
Oh yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I don't think it's gonna be a good reaction though.
No.
No. Because
Okay.
from what I understand about Hebrick is that he's pretty much renounced Fenner. Whereas as these guys are like all gung ho about Fenner. So I think that there's gonna be some conflict there.
Interesting. I guess I didn't really have any logic as to why I thought, I guess, things would go differently than that, but I just kind of felt like they would.
Well, I mean it's the comparison,
Not,
right?
I didn't think it was they're gonna just go have a picnic or something like that, but they'd be like, "Oh, what's up, man? It's been a long time. You lost your hands, but like we're back."
Yeah. How do you wipe your ass?
Yeah, exactly. I don't shit anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I mean it's interesting, and I wonder if that's even going to happen. Like, I mean, they're sailing across the strait, right? And they're obviously, I mean, they're going to go be picking up Heberick, Bowden, and Fellowson, but who says they even get there,
Yeah, that's true. They may not.
right? So yeah, I guess I don't know. Cool section. I really was digging that. I like the eeriness of this next one too.
My
So
section here.
yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely pretty dark. Were you ready for me to start that?
I'm good if you're good.
All right. Duaker rode from the village wrapped in his talaba on the coastal road. He reached the crossroad. To the south, it continued to Hissar. A trader's track went west, inland, and half a mile down that road there was an enemy encampment. He could see thousands of tents pitched up in no particular order. He could hear tribal chants coming across the wind. Just off the road, he saw a group of Malazan soldiers on sliding beds. He knew he could not help them no matter how mad he was. It was hard enough as it was to stay alive, but he knew the time for payback would come. He wondered if Coltane was still alive. Bolt and the Seventh. Had Sormo seen what was coming? He knew this revolt was no accident. The Shaikh had had years to plan and build her army. They knew this was happening. He thought Lasine should have put Pormqual's head on a spike. A competent High Fist would have squashed the rebellion. 3 figures called out to Duiker. Dosai Kim Moral. Not slowing down, Duiker responded with a night of glory. They wanted Duiker to stop and celebrate with them. He said he had family to celebrate with in Hisar Harbor, unless they had heard that the Seventh had taken back the city. One spoke, laughed, and said the Seventh had been crushed, killed in their beds. The city had been ridden of their Mesla curse. Duiker said he would continue then. He wondered about Coltane. Was he on a sliding bed now? Was the Seventh really gone? He found it hard to believe, but it could also be true. The uprising had been sudden and quick and backed with a high mage. He thought the price for the city would be high, but he must see for himself. As the Imperial historian, it was his duty. He would gather all the intel he could, and when the Malazan forces reconvened, his knowledge would be invaluable. He thought essentially he was a spy. So much for being objective. Some magic flared in a fishing village half a mile behind him. He knew Culp lived. He knew that what Culp could not defeat, he would escape. But what would Culp do now? If any of the Seventh survived, surely he must be with them. He also thought about Heberick's fate, knowing he did all he could for the handless bastard. There were no refugees on the road. All had proclaimed themselves soldiers of Dryjana. Duiker had expected to see some Malazans, or at least their signs of fleeing, but all he saw were signs of a deadly and terrible end. He was alone on the road except for growing numbers of desert cape moths. They were heading the same direction Duiker was. They were carrion eaters, and Duiker thought the world's harbingers of death were many and varied. He approached one of the city slums. He could smell the destruction of the city, smell the anger and the hatred that resided within. It was a familiar smell, and it made him feel old. Suddenly, 2 children ran across the road. One laughed that bordered on insanity, and it made Duiker nervous. He thought it silly to feel afraid of children. He saw down the road to where the Malazan barracks were, and he saw black smoke billowing. He rode towards it, thinking about the fact that the Malazans being butchered was much more real now. As he made his way towards the barracks, he saw how widespread the destruction was. He noted that freedom had been won, but only at the cost of everything. He saw that the sorcery had fell upon the building, had hit it in 4 places, and breached each one. He saw bodies plugging the holes in the building. None wore much for armor. The Seventh had fought with savagery, but they were cut down. They were not caught sleeping in their beds. For some reason, that gave Duiker a glimmer of hope. He saw 2 horses among dozens of dead Hisar bodies, but no lancers. So either they were lucky and suffered no casualties, or had time to recover their dead and wounded comrades. He felt like this must have been organized by Coltane or Bolt. He saw no one living on the street, dismounted, and approached the compound. Most of the bodies in the wall breaches were turned into pincushions, shot from close range. He saw the headquarters and barracks had been torched. Maybe the Seventh did it themselves, announcing to everyone that Coltane would not hide behind walls. So the Seventh and the Wiccans marched out in formation then. How would they have fared? Back to his horse, and with dawn approaching, he could see more smoke coming from the Malazan estate district. Light brought a calmness to the air, he thought. It still didn't feel real. In the estate district, he found signs of a true bloodbath. This was probably hit the same time the Seventh was attacked. Families were dragged out into the street, brutally murdered. Women and children were not spared, but young daughters had been spared to be taken, their fate likely worse than death. He felt numb to all he saw, somehow able to detach his feelings from all he took in order to observe. He knew later he would have nightmares and doubt his faith. As he approached the center square, he was prepared to see more of what he had already come across. But to his surprise, he found the Hisari had been ambushed. He thought he could piece together what had happened. Whoever commanded had intended to prevent Coltane from striking out into the city. With the level of magic he could see, it was clear they meant to annihilate the Malazan army, but had failed. The Wiccans rallied and broke through the lines. Though they were too late to stop the slaughter in the square, they altered their plan en route and had ambushed the mob. The Hisari sent no scouts ahead and walked right into the trap and were cut down to the man. He heard footsteps behind him. It was a band of the city guard. Duiker called out that it was a terrible slaughter and it must be avenged. The sergeant of the group said he had the look of a deserter about him. Duiker said he had ridden from the High Mage's forces from the north to look for his nephew and join him. The sergeant says if he lives, he is with Rouleau. Another soldier says they drove the Malazan from the city, outnumbered, wounded, and burdened with thousands of refugees. The sergeant shut him up and said they were going to Rouleau. All the Hisari will be blessed to be there for the final slaughter of the Malazan. Duiker realized why there was no one around. They had all been conscripted in the army whether they liked it or not. Duiker says he will join, but he had vowed to protect his nephew. The sergeant told him the vow to drive the Mesla from the 7 cities was greater. Dryjana demands his soul. The apocalypse has come, and all must answer the call. Duiker told him that he had spilled Mesla blood last night, and his soul was given to keeping 7 cities safe. His tone implied that the soldier should respect his elders. The sergeant acknowledged Duiker, and they rode through the estates. The sergeant explained it was Chemist Rouleau's army, gathering southwest of the city. 3 of the Odhan tribes were harassing the train of the retreating Mesla, who were heading to Sialk. But what they did not know was that Sialk had also fallen. When the Mesla commander would be forced to try and defend double the number of civilians as the Mesla from Sialk were being driven up the road. Next, Rouleau would encircle them, outnumbering them 7-1 and finishing the killing. They expected this to happen in 3 days. Duiker made mental notes on all of this information and kept agreeable as he heard it all. What did he know? What he did know was Rouleau was a high mage, one who was believed to have been killed over 10 years ago in Raraku by the Shaikh, over who was to lead the apocalypse. But instead of killing him, she turned him into an ally. He thought that hearing about Rouleau being killed was a lie, one they all believed, and now one they would all pay for in their ignorance. The sergeant said the Mesla army was like a great wounded beast, wounded by many strikes. Streaming blood, the beast staggered on, blinded by pain. But in 3 days, the beast would fall. Duiker thought about a tracker on a boar hunt once that told him that most that were killed by boars were killed after the animal had taken its mortal wound. One last final lashing out by the beast as the hunter had lost caution, seeing victory moments away. Duiker felt overconfidence come from the soldier. The Mesla were bleeding, but still breathing. That was quite the section there.
Yeah, I feel like the first how many sections is this now? 6?
That was 6, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like up until this point they were pretty lengthy sections, and then after this it kind of picks up the pace a little bit. But yeah, it just, I feel like I don't have a ton here, just because it's just, I don't know, I just get the feeling of emptiness and just like walking into a ghost town, just nothing's in sight, dawn is on the horizon. So clearly it took him a while to ride from where Culp was to where he is now, so probably tired as fuck, didn't get any sleep. Yeah, I could just only imagine the desolation that he's feeling and seeing. So
yeah, dead bodies everywhere. I mean, just buildings destroyed, just a mess of things. So it kind of doesn't make a little bit of sense to me. You've got this uprising, and yeah, if you're going to be fighting, there's going to be some destruction, but do you have to just completely destroy your city to drive the Malazans out? I don't know. Like, you can kill them, but you don't need to carpet bomb your whole fucking city,
I mean, maybe, but I guess, walls can be rebuilt.
Again, it just, to me, it almost feels like it's unnecessary work they're just creating for themselves, but whatever.
Yeah.
I think it's just to set the tone, I guess, how brutal it is.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, that is totally fair. I guess I know that you had a comment about the what was it called? The sliding bed.
Yeah, the sliding beds do not sound like a good time. So in the book, they're described, basically what I envisioned is you've got you got 4, I don't know, 8-foot, 10-foot spears or something that are spaced apart, that you could lay a person on top of it. So two of the tips of the spears are going through your thighs or somewhere in your leg, and the two at the front are going through your shoulders. And so you slide down these things as one is probably going to be struggling on this torture device. Uh, I don't know how you could sit still. You don't have anything to support your head, and you're just baking in the sun. Like, ooh,
Yeah,
not a good time. Pretty grisly.
right. Yeah, I would just slide down as fast as I could, and then use my body weight to snap the spears before I died of blood loss.
Yeah, maybe that. Yeah, hopefully you just bleed out before you have to suffer too much. I don't know. I don't. Doesn't sound like there's any surviving that thing unless somebody
No,
gets you off of it. But then you're still going to be in pretty tough shape.
yeah, I really like Duiker's internal monologue here about Pormqual and Coltane and Bolt and the Seventh, and I think it was just it kind of just goes back to kind of what we've already talked about as far as just Duiker's smart. He was able to piece together everything that happened just based on observation. Like he didn't even have to be there to
Yeah,
know
he's
what had happened.
and maybe he doesn't have things like 100% figured out, but he's got to be on the right path.
Right.
Like he's got a pretty good idea what happened, and he's probably mostly right.
Yeah. And just the way that everything builds, and it's not deliberate building of tension. Like, for example, the Cape Moths, right? Like heading towards death, the harbingers of death. Just going from this group that he encounters on the road, he was able to kind of get information out of them while essentially disguising himself as a follower of Georgiana. But then as it gets closer to, the slums, all these Cape Mouths are essentially going towards the dead, and it's just the scene just builds and builds, but it's not like a literal interpretation, it's not a hold your hand type of thing. It's a small little detail that just adds to the doom and gloom of this section.
Yeah, then there was plenty of doom and gloom, and even this plan that they have. They're driving them towards this other city that they don't know that's the Malazan don't know that has been overrun also, and they're gonna circle them. And so now I'm getting this is just kind of coming to me, thinking similarly to like the Battle of the Bastard on Game of Thrones. You remember when they're circled, and then
Yeah.
the knights from the Vale of Aaron show up and free him, or get him out of the jam. That's kind of what I'm almost envisioning, but on a bigger scale is going to happen. And I don't know that they're going to get rescued, but I really like the ending, where Duiker thinks about the boar just lashing out one final time. So maybe that's some foreshadowing to the boar squad from Fenner.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is just kind of coming to me now. I don't know if you thought about that, but that just popped into my head.
No, I'm thinking about it as you're explaining it. Like that makes sense. So maybe I'm assuming maybe that's just foreshadowing that they are going to be able to get Heberick, Bowden, and Fellowson, and that group somehow manages to intercede somewhere.
It doesn't
They
sound
are.
like the number of people on the ship aren't going to change the numbers of this battle in any significant way at all. I mean, maybe you got like 30 people on this ship or something.
Less than I would say maybe 6 or 7.
Okay.
Storm Truth, Gessler, Duiker, Culp, Bowden, Fellowson, and Heberick. So
And so some of those people aren't even going to be effective in a battle.
no, not at
Um,
all. But I mean, they do have Fenner on their side, or so I would assume.
yeah. So I don't know, just spitballing things here. They're still going to be
Yeah,
outnumbered a lot if they get there.
yeah, and who knows if even that's a scenario, right? Like, there's so many endless possibilities, and I think that's what kind of makes this book fun. Is that again, you have a lot of pieces, but there's really nothing to tie them together outside of the pieces. So you just kind of make these connections whether they exist or not, and I don't know. I guess it's fun for me to speculate. So
Yeah, I was just thinking back to when you pointed out that bloodfly foreshadowing and just how literal that was. So that's what kind of made me think of that.
Yeah. But here's a question based on I guess our divergence on Jana and the Apocalypse and the Whirlwind is in the last chapter Shaik dies, but why would the Red Blades say that the book was opened? Why would they convey that communication? So who is it that told everybody to rebel in such a short amount of time? Like, what sign did they see to just be all in unison, go crazy on Malazans? Like, think about it. Like, why would the Red Blades? Like, you can count them out. They're not gonna. They are Malazan lapdogs. They're not going to put any type of tide or wave into sparking the rebellion. So what sparked it? What existed to unify people all over the continent in such a short amount of time?
I
Like,
guess I don't know. You're asking the big questions here. All I can think of is just that drives home the point to me that of how important the Shaik is. If there's some coincidence, it's not like a comet went streaking across the sky or something. You know, I guess I don't know.
how does anybody know that she's alive or dead? How does
None-
anybody know that she
Only
opened?
only a couple people know that she's dead right now.
Right. So how does everything in unison fire up when nobody knows if anything's changed or not?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't,
Yeah.
I'd have to think we'd get some sort of explanation.
Right. I mean, I guess, yeah, I'm sure that it's coming and that it will happen eventually, but it's just one of the things that I'm like picking out that I mean, it's possible that this high mage Relo has something to do with it. I mean, maybe he just kind of took things into his own hands and behind the scenes made an organization, or, Shaik and Relo for some reason were meeting behind the scenes and we're organizing that way. I guess it really could be anything. But I think that the most that we know is as far as our pie theory is what I'm going to call it.
I like it.
Uh, but yeah, is that neither one of us at this point. I guess the facts that were presented don't really give either one of us an edge.
I would agree with that. Yeah, there's things going both ways. I f- yeah, I don't know if with Relo, I'm wondering like if Shaik could see. Maybe she said she had this singular vision. Did she know like the day it was going to happen? And
Maybe.
so maybe it's a situation where she says, "Okay, on this day, I'm getting my fucking head shot off. So at noon or whatever time, start this shit up. I'll be dead, but I'll be back." I don't know.
Very. I mean, I can't argue that. That is very possible. Uh, well thought out, I guess.
I don't know if I would say well thought out. Just
I think so. I mean, it makes logical sense. I mean, how could anyone disprove that logic? I mean, first we're banking on the fact that Rolo and Shaik are talking behind the scenes, but we
yeah,
don't have anything conclusive at that point. If that's not the case, then yeah, of course your theory shatters, but we don't know. We have no idea.
right. I'm hoping we get. Well, I don't know. Jan said he's got a pie picked out, so I feel like we must get payoff in this book.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That much I know is certain. And it sounds like he knows, I mean, he knows who's right. So, yeah, one of us is right. We got a 50% shot.
Yeah. You want to flip a coin?
I don't know, maybe. Should we decide the coin flip? If the coin flip is wrong, then what?
then I don't know.
Okay. I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, I feel like this section is probably my favorite, only because it takes you from such a high stressful moment and yes, winds it down a little bit, like it's definitely a lot more slower paced, but things are definitely happening. So this to me is like the pivot point in everything in this chapter. It just brings everything like ties everything nicely in a nice little bow as far as everything that's happened so far.
Yeah, it's kind of a tone shift, isn't it? I mean, it's things have been pretty
Yeah.
dark already, but now this is really the dark.
This is abysmal, yeah. So I don't know if I necessarily have anything else to talk about. I feel like we hit on the major points. Yeah.
The only other thing I would add here is just I'm kind of thinking of this now, just feeding off of your, what you've talked about, but Duiker and his I guess disguise, he's bullshitting his way past these other guards, um, and they're buying it. So, or at least they
Right.
appear to be.
Yeah, exactly.
But that was, yeah. I don't think I've got anything else to add for discussion there. I think be ready for you to move on.
All right. From a port away, Icarium and Imapo appear at a fishing boat in the chamber that had the shape of a bowl. The boat appeared to be disheveled. Mappo seems to be in disbelief and voices his displeasure. Icarium stepped past the trow to observe the boat. He makes the observation that the boat appears to have been here for 5 years, as he can still smell the brine. He asks Mappo if he knows the design. In a moment of what I'm interpreting as sarcasm, Mappo curses himself for not anticipating moments like these, or taking any interest in things such as boats, and is unable to answer Icarium's question. Icarium places his hand on the boat and suggests to Mappo that this is what Iscarol Boost had intended them to find. Mappo questions this by making the statement that he thought they were here to seek a broom. Icarium tells Mappo that the broom will eventually turn up, and it's not what they seek, but the journey. Suspiciously, Mappo glares at his friend, giving him a fake smile. He enters the room and takes a whiff, and tells Icarium that he smells no brine. Mappo agrees with Icarium that it does not look like this boat has been here for centuries. Then why is a fishing boat found in a room deep within a cliff in the middle of the desert, 30 leagues away from anything bigger than a spring? Icarium agrees to this, and Mappo asks if Icarium recognized the style. Icarium admits that he is as versed in watercraft as Mappo was. Mappo grunts as he witnesses Icarium start rummaging around inside the boat. Icarium observes some nets that are deftly made and some withered things that could have been decayed fish. Mappo hears wood clatter, and Icarium turns to him with Puss broom in hand. Mappo, with some more sarcasm laid on thick, asks Icarium if we now sweep the room. Icarium, taking the comment literally, tells Mappo that they should return it to its rightful owner. Mappo questions whether that's the boat or the broom. Icarium tells Mappo that this is an interesting question. Mappo frowns. He was frustrated. Too long underground, too long inactive to bend to this madman's schemes. His mind eluded this mystery, and it was an effort. He resented that this was worth anything at all. Sighing, he speculates Shadow Throne swooped down and plucked this boat and its occupant and brought it here. Mappo states that he has a hard time imagining Iscarol Poost has any Fisher bloodlines. Carium agrees, but suggests that it could either be the mule or the servant then. Mappo plays along with the possibility, but has a hard time believing that a mule dragging a boat would attract the attention of gods. Icarium then suggests the boat must belong to the servant. They both agree that it's the servant's boat. Icarium, with broom in hand, sets it down like he's holding a staff and suggests that they have more questions for Iscarol Poost. I think the thing that I like the most is Mappo simply says, "This is no surprise," and I'm interpreting this as indignation. Like, he can't believe they've been sent on this quest to find a fucking broom, but rather stumbled upon a fishing boat. And I feel like he's really irritated at this point. And I really enjoy the dynamic between these two characters, kind of overall, but in this section especially, because you get really a good sense of Mappo's irritations with Poost. But on the opposite end, you've got Icarium who is all gung ho about it, you know?
It's interesting because I didn't really pick up on that, but now that you mention it, they are two sides of the coin on that, aren't they?
It's funny you say coin. Yes, yes.
You have
But
thoughts?
no, not really. Just Opon, just coin Opon.
Oh,
It's what it reminded me of.
gotcha.
Which I know is mentioned later on, but I don't necessarily that really has anything to do with these particular two. Yeah, I guess I guess the big thing here, the biggest thing is, and I know we talked about this via messenger a little bit, but servant's boat. They both kind of come to this unanimous agreement that this has to be the servant's boat. So who is servant?
I don't know.
Got nothing, eh? All right,
He's a
here
guy.
we go.
He's a guy.
Here we go. So, servant has to be Apsalar's father. Remember in Gardens of the Moon when Lauren is able to deduce that all the villagers were dead, but the young girl and the man? So that's one. Two, Icarium finds nets. Apsalar was carrying twine, I believe, to take to her father to craft some more nets because theirs had been broken. This fisher boat, Apsalar and her father were fisher people, as this has been known and reintroduced throughout the story so far. Third thing, servant having an older hand and then a younger hand. I can't really make sense of the younger one or what that means, but the older hand could belong to a father of some kind. So I'm not sure how this all relates to Poost and Icarium and Mappo though. That part seems rather unrelated, but at the same time, this has to be Apsalar's dad. Like,
I'm
who else
not.
could it be?
I'm not sure I'm buying yet, but I'm not saying that I disagree with you.
What's your hesitation? All of
I
the
guess.
possibilities of other Fisher people.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Like, okay, I mean, you found a boat. It's not unreasonable to find nets in it, right?
Fair, yeah.
But you do make me wonder, like, why would he be important enough to become servant here? I don't know.
Where
It's an interesting theory, and I'd like to see where it goes. So I'm on the fence. I'm on the
think about
fence.
it,
We'll say that.
like Shadow Throne essentially snatched Apsalar, and Cotillion possessed her, which is really just shit, not to seem who's the other one? Not Kellenved, not to
Dancer.
seem
Dancer.
Dancer, thank you. So Cotillion is essentially Dancer reborn. So if Cotillion and Amanus have, because I mean her dad is never explained. Like we never hear him killed. We never, Lauren makes the association that, there's everybody in the village is dead except for these two people. Well, we know what happened to Apsalar, or the young Fisher girl. We don't know or never got answers as to her dad. That was something that never got revealed past the first chapter of the first book. So, what else would Shadow Throne do with them?
Maybe
And
you're
I
onto
feel like
something.
they do make a comment about, like, remember, because they have a little bit of an argument about what to do with him, and one convinces the other to spare him, essentially, for lack of a better term. So if Cotillion or if Apsalar possesses the skills of a god because of possession, what would lure her to Shadow Throne? The fact that her dad is still alive. So if Shadow Throne has been, I don't know, using her dad as like a servant, or yeah, I don't know, maybe he lost his hand somehow and they just replaced it with something else. I mean, who knows? But that's where I'm going with
Interesting. I'm
it.
still not sure,
It's too
but I will
coincidental.
be. It does seem that way, but
Yeah.
I still just I just don't know.
Should we get
Definitely
another pie? Should we put another pie on the line?
no, because I'm not like disagreeing with you on this.
You're speculative.
I'm a little unsure. But
Gotcha.
if you're right on this, I would not be surprised.
All right. Cool.
And
Those are the only.
I would think that was fucking cool if you're right.
Yeah, that would be cool. I mean, I don't know what importance he has outside of luring Apsalar to Shadow Throne, because you essentially have Cotillion 2.0.
Yeah.
I mean, what better way to take down Lucine than basically another fucking assassin?
I mean, that's probably what it's going to take.
And think about it, go back to the deck of dragons that all was encircling around an assassin. That could have meant Kalam. That could have been Apsalar too.
Interesting. It's a lot to think about there, Justin.
Yeah, this is what I do. But yeah, those are the only two big things. Again, it was a short section, so but yeah, I guess I'm ready if you're ready.
All right. 3 hours had passed. Mappo and Icarium were exhausted. They found Iskarel at a table leaning over a deck of dragons. He yelled at them that they were late, and the deck was ripe with energy. The world outside was in flux. Their love of ignorance is not worthy of these precipitous times. and to attend this field or remain lost in their peril. Mappo found a jug of wine. Icarium dropped the broom and sat at a chair across from Iskarol. Iskarol held the deck in both hands in the air, muttered a silent prayer, and began laying cards down in a spiral. The first card was Obelisk. As Iskarol shouted nervously and continued to ramble on, he doled out card after card. The rope, open, the male twin, scepter, throne, queen of high house life, spinner of high house death, soldier of high house light, knight of life, mason of dark. He trailed off, then sang, Renewal! A resurrection without passage through Hood's gate. He looked into Icarium's eyes and said they had another journey to begin soon. Icarium questioned this. Iskarol answered, Yes. Could they not see it? Are they idiots? How have they lived this long? The Lord of Shadow couldn't make it any more clear. Iskarol rattled off the cards again. Icarium closed the distance between them and had his hands around his neck. Mappo did his best to calm him so he didn't have to physically intervene. Icarium came to and threw Iskarol to the ground and told him to speak plainly. He told them they needed to go into the holy desert. The two friends asked why. Iskarol said the Shaikh was dead.
So now Obelisk comes up in the deck of dragons again. But do you remember what Kalam said about the Obelisk card in the first place?
It's ineffective or something along those lines.
So is this premeditated by Iskarel to motivate Mappo and Icarium to do what he wants?
I had not thought about that.
I think it is. I feel like, again, everything with Poost is like crazy deliberate, like kind of genius, if I'm being honest about it.
He's a squirrely, sneaky little asshole.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, he's a high priest of Shadow. So he's definitely close in communication with, I would assume, either a Manus or someone close to a Manus. Cotillion, potentially. And I feel like Mappo and Icarium are the key to the rebellion or the history awakening based on the prophecy from Jaijana from the seer boy.
Just that, like Icarium's going to regain his memories and everything you're talking?
I don't know if it's necessarily regain his memories, but I feel like that is something that is going to happen with the history being reawoken. The history of the land, like the sleeping spirits of what's layered beneath the surface, so to speak. I think that once the seven cities remembers its past, this is what I think Drajana, the prophecy, is pointing to. And this is how I think that they will thwart the Malazan Empire and Lucene. It's not the rebellion is helping, but I think the overall goal from Shadow Throne is still to get back at Lucene, right? Like it's clearly a revenge game.
Yeah, I agree.
Kellenvet and Dancer are stabbing at Lucene. So I think that the rebellion, the whirlwind, is really just a distraction to go straight for the heart, or attempt to.
There was an attempt.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess I just There's I don't know. There's so many ways that this could fucking go, but
There's a lot.
Yeah, but the whole obelisk thing is it's a nail that's sticking out. Like one of two is true. Either Kalam is correct in saying that obelisk doesn't apply to seven cities, or it doesn't. So one of them has to be wrong.
Yeah. Who is it though?
Right. I guess we'll just Raffo read and find out.
Yeah, I don't know. Iskarol's pretty crazy, so I don't know. He's crazy enough to be crazy. I don't know. I think his whole rant here, the whole thing was like reading it was a lot of fun, just because you kind of get to get into a little bit the mind of somebody who's just got to be insane. I feel like that's
Right.
hard to do. Like you don't see that a lot. It is like I think like Pad and Fane a little bit from Wheel of Time. Like you get in his head a little bit, and he's insane, but he's evil. And I don't know that Iskarol is just plain evil, but he's definitely crazy. So it's not the same. But I think his whole resurrection without passage through Hood's gate, to me, I feel like that's just obvious, Justin. It's too on the nose. I think saying that Shaikh's coming back, unless you think it's pointing to somebody else.
I think that what he's doing is Iscarel is misleading Mappo and Icarium to do what he wills or what Shadowthrone wills. But who else do we know that has had resurrection without the passage through Hood's Gate?
Well, Ganoz, I mean, he was at Hood's Gate. He didn't go through it, I guess, but he was right there.
Right, without the passage through Hood's Gate. So he never went through Hood's Gate either. But he was resurrected by Opon. And Opon, he doled out card after card. The rope, Opon, the male twin, scepter throne, blah, 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 blah. Right? How easy would it be for Iscarel to talk about what happened on Genebacus? Because the rope was involved. Opon, the male twin, was involved. A resurrection without the passage through Hood's Gate was involved.
Yeah.
How easy would it be for him to just, I mean, Shadowthrone is aware of all that.
I don't know. I feel like Iskra, like how, like you said before, though, how does nobody knows except for a couple people that Shaik is dead, but Iskarel knows it. Like, there's no way you can just take a stab in the dark and be like, oh yeah, she's dead.
I guess great question. I mean, I'm assuming he's gathering all of this from the deck of dragons here. So, I mean, like, I know that along with Rope and Opon, there's the Queen of High House Life, Spinner of High House Death, Soldier of High House Light, Knight of Life, Mason of Dark. So, from what I'm gathering here, there's one. It seems that High House Life is stacked more than High House Death, which I feel like how he is interpreting a resurrection without the passage through Hood's Gate. But again, it's not oddly specific. I don't know what Mason of Dark would be, or how that relates to anything. Yeah, very well. It's the same situation that could have easily applied to Ganoz as well. I don't know. I get the feeling that, Iscarel, there's a double meaning here. There's a hidden agenda. And I think that he's been successful in coercing, especially Icarium, to, I guess, do his will. I mean, they convinced him to go on an epic quest to find a fucking broom.
Yeah, he's kind of taking advantage of him a little bit, isn't he?
And Mappo's in this like catch-22. He can't really do anything about Icarium because one, whatever he says is just going to be forgotten. And so like he's guilted into going along with Icarium. Thus the irritation, thus the speculative, like Mappo has totally figured out Iscarel, but he is unable and carry him into a position to see reason.
Yeah.
That's just me. But
well, we're gonna soon. I think we'll get some resolution on this. So it'll be interesting to see which one of us is on which end of things.
You mean the one that's getting pied?
Yep.
And I mean, this could be another, side story. This may not even relate to anything, but yeah, I think it's all hogwash. I think that Iscarel is he's manipulating them, especially Carrie.
Yeah, I get that sense too. I don't know. He's just crazy and it's hard to trust him, but I don't know. He seems to know some shit.
Right. Which is also, I mean, those two things are dangerous, right? Like, I feel like that spells out manipulation.
Yeah, it's not a good combo.
No. But yeah, I guess I'm ready if you're ready.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mappo and Icarium were in Mappo's quarters that were given to him. The troll makes the statement that it must be ingrained into Poost to not speak directly. Poost had vanished shortly after being strangled. Icarium nods and states that Poost had spoken of a resurrection. He goes on to say that it must be considered the sudden death of Shaik defies prophecy, unless indeed the renewal marks the return from Hood's Gate. Mappo follows this up by saying that they have been ensnared into Poost's web too easily, and for himself, he's glad that the Shaik is dead. If her death takes this land back from the brink of mutiny, then to interfere would put them in great danger. Icarium asks if Mappo fears the wrath of gods. Mappo explains that what he fears is being used by the gods in their schemes in mortal affairs. He will do nothing to achieve their desires, Icarium rises from a chair and says, nor does he, but he wants to witness his resurrection as he's curious as to what has the power to wrest a soul from Hood's grasp. He goes on to explain that every ritual of resurrection he's heard of always resulted in higher cost, as Hood always ensures that he wins. Mappo rubs his forehead as he ponders the thought of what his friend is doing here, and how Mappo sees the desperation to seek every path that could lead to revelation. If he could speak openly to him, then he would speak the truth. Mappo finally speaks to Icarium and tells him that this is an ancient land, and that we cannot guess the powers that have been invested into the sand and stone. Mappo recalls his wanderings through Raraku, and how the land sleeps, but he could feel its restless shifting, more now than ever before. He has a thought, and this thought is to not awaken this place unless it awakens Icarium. After a long, thoughtful pause, Icarium says, well, will you accompany Mappo Trell? So, as much as you claimed that you think I'm fucked in the previous section, I would say that justly in this section, I would say that you're fucked. So there's definitely some separation here, a divergence. Oh.
Nice job.
Naturally. But I think that what I thought was cool was kind of going back to the whole gods and Mappo not wanting to be used in their schemes, which kind of seems like Iskarel and Shadow Throne are scheming a bit here. It was said that chaos and blood are the meat and wine of the gods. And I think that it was an interesting way to look at it like that. And it kind of proves what we were already thinking about the gods. Like chaos and blood are essentially just their dinner. Like nothing extravagantly more than filling your stomach. Nothing more important than making sure you had some good food. Not just food to survive, but good tasting food. The nonchalance in that statement is just powerful. Like, they don't give a shit about Mappo. They don't give a shit about Icarium. They just care about using them to a point where they're no longer able to be used. And that is awakening Raraku.
Pretty dark stuff, Justin. Not very happy thoughts.
No. No, definitely not happy thoughts.
You are my black cloud today.
Sorry. I mean, could be other things in water.
I need a ray of sunshine here. You're not it.
Danny's laughing her ass off in the background here. Apparently, you made her spit.
Not going there.
Please don't. Oh, good. You're writing a book? Oh, cool. Are you writing unintentionally what we're saying? I do that sometimes. Someone's talking and I end up writing it.
Yeah.
So, but here's my damn question. Is Icarium goes on to explain that every resurrection he's heard of always resulted in a higher cost, which I think that this is evidence of your Gano's theory with Felazin, right? Like, Hood always ensures that he wins. So Gano's escaped Hood's grasp. So I think this is just confirmation to your theory. I think that it just adds another tick there.
Well, I did not put that together. But yeah, I guess, yeah, you think about it, and it's maybe not an immediate win. As far as that goes, yeah, it's going to be maybe not necessarily a long con either, but yeah, the payoff is delayed.
Right. But the other thing is, if Icarium doesn't have his memory for longer than a few moments, or whatever the time frame is, how is he able to recall this information?
I don't know. It seems I kind of got the feeling that his memory seemed to be somewhat like selective. That maybe there's not necessarily. I don't know. Do you think there's like just a hard time limit after he doesn't remember anything from 5 minutes ago or whatever time frame it is, or is it just selective? Certain thing, I don't know.
Maybe it's memories involving his inventions. Maybe he created something that would unleash Raraku's past, and he's the only one who knows how to use it. Or,
what if he doesn't remember how to use it?
Right, but maybe that's where Mappo comes in. I don't know. Who fucking knows?
We're spitballing here, throwing darts at a board.
But yeah, I guess it just goes back to what I already mentioned when we were talking about Dryjana earlier. But just the whole Mappo has having a thought, and the thought is, "Do not awaken this place unless it awakens Icarium." And this feels awfully like the prophecy of Dryjana from the second chapter. And I think that Icarium and the lands rising, thus remembering who they are connected. I think this is my biggest argument towards Shaik dying, is that the prophecy was spoken from Jajana, but through the seer boy, she doesn't mention anything about Shaik or the book.
Maybe the seer
So,
boy just wasn't that important.
I mean, to the gods, not really.
No, yeah.
So, and again, maybe there's two sides to the story, right? Like, we have what Shadow Throne is trying to do, and we have the Dryjana whirlwind thing. But I feel like they're connected in some way, shape, or form.
I think we're gonna get more clarity on some of the stuff soon.
I hope so. I hope so.
I just, I wonder where like this next chapter is gonna go. I'm not 100% certain, but I am ready to find out.
Yep, me too. I'm assuming that, things are still going to keep escalating. Or, we're going to get the aftermath of everything and people starting to put pieces together. So, yeah, very well could be right. But
We'll have to see here.
I guess I don't have any other comments or questions about that particular section.
No, I don't. I don't think I have anything else to add to that either. I think you did a good job with it.
Thanks, dude.
Probably I feel like one of the more difficult sections, I think. Even though it wasn't that long, just kind of some weird information and
I think I'm
trying to
starting
make.
to figure out. I feel like I figured out Boost, and I very like it could be way wrong, way out in left field, but it's given me the confidence to at least understand these sections a little bit more. I don't know if that makes any sense.
I don't know if it makes sense to me yet. I thought you meant like you knew who he was.
No, I don't know who he is. I know enough of like his mannerisms and his character as a whole so far that I feel like the direction my mind is going, whether that's right or wrong, has given me the confidence to like either keep being right or wrong.
Okay.
Yeah. But I digress. If you're ready, I'm ready.
I was born ready, Justin. The wall of sand rose effortlessly to the sky. Somewhere in the mess of it all was the holy desert known as Raraku. Crocus, Fiddler, and Apsalar looked down at the storm from their horses. Crocus said he assumed this wasn't your average run-of-the-mill storm. Moby had disappeared again in the morning, and Fiddler felt like he wouldn't see him again. It seemed Moby was regaining his wild instincts. Crocus spoke up again, saying that he thought the whirlwind would not be a literal storm, more like a state of being. So, were they looking at the wrath of a goddess? Absalar didn't know how a rebellion could be started in that. She thought one would hardly be able to open their eyes in that mess. Unless it was just a barrier and behind it is calm. Crocus agreed and thought this was likely. Fiddler said they had no choice then. They must ride through the storm. The Grawl hunters were mere minutes behind. He figured they numbered about 20. Even with Absalar's skills and his Moranth ammunition, it wouldn't be great odds to make a stand against them. Fiddler was hesitant still to take off into the storm. He knew the other two could sense his hesitation. Finally, Absalar spoke up, saying she wished to know more about this place, this holy desert and its power. Fiddler told her she would get that opportunity, and to wrap their faces, they were going to meet the whirlwind. So another kind of one of those things where it doesn't really lend itself one way or the other for us.
Right.
Where Crocus is like, oh, I didn't actually think there was going to be a real storm. I thought it was like you had been saying, it was like a state of mind. So it's just hard to like, which is it? We just don't have enough. I don't think there's enough clear evidence one way or the other.
Right. But also, I mean, I find it interesting that they called the storm a barrier. So it kind of seems like, and maybe we could touch on this in the next section a little bit with some of the information comes up, but it almost kind of insinuates that Raraku is protecting something and the whirlwind is surrounding what it is protecting, so as a deterrent to keep people out.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think you could be onto something there.
So,
it does feel like there's something there.
Right. But I mean, I feel like all of this is foreshadowing to, I don't know.
Something. And once we read it, we'll be like, oh yeah, well that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, but I think it just helps the reader remember these small little things a lot more like finitely because you are so confused in the moment as to what it's leading to. So when like you get that payoff, it's just like now everything's falling into place, you know?
Yeah. So yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah, yeah, I think so too. But yeah, I guess outside of that, I don't know. I don't have anything else to say about this very short section.
No, it was
It,
pretty quick, and yeah, I didn't really have anything there. Moby's gone again. I don't know. Is he going to be back?
Fiddler doesn't think so.
Yeah.
He's
So I
already
don't know.
sowing his notes.
We'll see what happens. I guess maybe we'll see Moby again. I don't know. I
I
don't
have
know.
a
I don't.
feeling.
I don't. I feel, were you going to say you feel like we were? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, no, it's fine. I feel like we are. I feel like we'll see him again.
I do too. I mean, otherwise, why do you keep bringing him up?
Right. Yeah.
Well,
Uh, cool. I'm ready.
all right. Take your
I'm
last
gonna.
section here.
That's right. The storm engulfed them, whipping them with its ravaged gusts of wind. Fiddler had sensed the last time he rode these wastes an underlying restlessness, and was now unleashed. Heads ducked and horses plodded forward. The group dismounted and hooded their horses, and then led them on. As they walked, it was unavoidable to not step on bones, lumps of armor, or chariot wheels. Eventually, they came to a slope. Struggling to climb the slope, they made it to the top where there was a road. The road stretched as straight as an arrow as far as Fiddler could see. Crocus leaned close and told Fiddler that he thought there were no roads in Roriku. Crocus wonders if they should follow it. Fiddler shakes his head as he's lost for an answer. Fiddler continues to stare down the road again to his right. He has a thought to himself about the heart of Rariku, where Shaik and her renegades are encamped. Could water be found somewhere along the way? Surely the builders of this road would have accommodated for that, as they seem to not be fools. Tremorlore. This track would lead them to that legendary gate. Rariku has a heart, as Quick Ben had said. Tremorlore, House of the Azath. Fiddler tells the group that they will follow the road. They voiced no complaints and led their horses in the direction Fiddler had gestured. Fiddler thinks to himself again how the group was totally willing to follow his command, as if he knew what he was doing, to rely upon the plan to find Tremolor, and this rests on the faith that it actually exists. Or should he tell them Quick Ben's assumptions to be correct? Even though he was unwilling to reveal where his certainty came from. The possibility that if they didn't die from thirst, that they would die at the hands of Shaik and her fanatical followers. Fid! Crocus yelled and pointed up the road. Fiddler spun around to see Grawl warriors ascending the slope. After a moment, the Grawl spotted their quarry. Apsalar asked if they should run. Fiddler, recognizing that they didn't appear to be in the mood for conversation, told Crocus and Apsalar to go on ahead. He would take them on. Crocus and Apsalar dismounted, attempting to make Fiddler see reason in this decision. They both need him to survive out here. Fiddler has a thought to this and tells himself that they'd be better off with him leading them. They'd be no better off with him leading them. Fiddler tells them he means for this to be a short engagement and loads a cusser bolt into his crossbow. The Grawl pulled their mounts into motion, with lances held out. Fiddler aimed and fired. 3 feet in front of the charging Grawl and Grawl horses, the cusser bolt exploded. Fiddler has a moment of regret as if he, inside of himself, wanted to be a Grawl, and only if he could have asked them. Crocus breaks this thought by stating that twice the Morath musicians have saved them. Mounting back up and leading them on, he tells the group to be ready, as they may run into more of them. Fiddler has thoughts of himself about who could stop this mad goddess, this whirlwind. He slitted his eyes to peer down the road that led into the heart of Rariku. They would have to find Tremorlor before the whirlwind swallowed them whole.
So, like I said, I did not read this chapter, and more than once. I read it, and then I guess I'd kind of read it when I was doing my summaries, but I skipped over yours. So I forgot about Tremolor. But yeah, I guess, do you think it would make sense to me that that's what is kind of what's being hidden, what we were just talking about? I don't know if that's what you were thinking also.
As far as what?
Well, we were talking about the whirlwind being like the storm being a barrier.
Oh, yeah.
Like that seems to make sense.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, but yeah,
Yeah.
I totally forgot about that place. That was brought up.
I just it feels out of nowhere. Like it feels out of left field. I mean, for this to be, I mean, this definitely seems to be Quick Ben's plan, and I feel like it has to do with taking out Lucine as well. So, is this potentially what Shadow Throne is after as well?
I don't know. I mean,
Because in the previous section, Poost makes it seem like they have to go out into the heart of Raraku. Well, so are these guys.
but it seems like different reasons.
Both to kill Lucine. I guess the only association I can make is that the only other Azath that we've had, and Rallick and Vorkan walked into it. So is this where Rallick emerges?
It could be.
Or are the House of the Azath, are they some type of like portal? Can they use this Azath to jump to the continent that Lucine is on? I mean,
We don't really know anything about them.
no.
But yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah, it's just because yeah, at the end of Gardens they walk into it and that was it. And yeah, now it's just there's one popping up here. Or, well, not like literally popping up like the other one, but they're going to where there must be more of these. Like,
Well, right, but yeah,
yeah,
and
go ahead.
but I'm thinking about it, right? And the specifics elude me, which is terrible to say from Gardens of the Moon. But what I do remember is that the Azath essentially is the one in Darujistan is, well, Lady Scimitar's estate, basically like her garden, is a new or a young Azath, which the Tistiande finally make the decision not to tell Animander Rake because he could easily destroy it in its infancy, but they allow it to let it live, right? But think about the trauma that created that house and everything that unveiled to create it, right? Like all of that chaos with Reyest and yeah, the Finnest and all that shit. Like I said, the specifics kind of elude me, but you know where I'm going. Just the concept of the houses being created and the amount of energy it took to create them.
Yeah, I mean it must have been a lot.
So I can only assume the same is true for this. So maybe this is like where the history of the seven cities is stored or could be unleashed. Maybe this is something that Icarium had created in the past. I don't know. I don't know.
That's it. Hey, I have nothing to argue against that with.
I'm excited. I'm excited. I really enjoyed reading this part and I really want to know more about the Tremor lore. So just to see where it goes. And again, it could be like this completely unrelated thing. Totally unrelated. But that's just like my initial thoughts, I guess. Whether they're true or not, I don't really care. But it's just these are the things that like I'm making connections to.
You're making a lot more of them than I am, so which is fine. I'm not like yeah, I'm not like upset about it. I love hearing these things that you're piecing together. So it's good entertainment for me, and it opens my eyes to things that maybe I obviously we have things we disagree on, but even things I just didn't even pick up on altogether. So I like that.
That's fair enough. The only other thing that I could think of was kind of feel a little bad for Fiddler, and we get a little bit of a dive into his psyche a bit. He's clearly doesn't seem very confident in himself. He doesn't think that he's really one to lead, but he's kind of all that everybody has. And then he has to make this decision to kill these Grail or Grawl like hunters. And I feel like he relates to that mindset quite a bit personally for him. So it's kind of like he shot himself in the foot a little bit, but he made a decision to choose one over the other. And he's sad about that.
Right? I guess I don't know. I mean, the decision I see is either kill or be killed.
Right.
It doesn't seem that difficult in that moment to me.
I mean, it's just, I guess I'm more talking about the remorse he has for making that decision. As almost like he admired the Grawl and like their horse and their culture, and he's sad that he had to make that decision. I guess is where I'm trying to go with that.
Yeah, I don't know. If it were me personally, I guess I wouldn't at that moment I wouldn't be thinking that, but maybe later on, yeah. I could see that, but at least not immediately. I'd probably still be too jacked up on adrenaline to be like, I got to think about this. Like when I calm down a little bit later is when I would probably feel that way.
Fair,
But if
fair
this,
enough.
if he's a soldier, so this isn't his first rodeo, so he's probably not too worked up and excited
He's
about it.
pretty
He's like, yeah,
desensitized by,
yeah,
yeah,
I've done this shit before.
right. But yeah, I think it's interesting. I'm starting to like Fiddler more and more. Not that I ever didn't like him, but just the level of growth I'm seeing, and the level of intricacy that you get now versus Gardens of the Moon is making him just an all around cool character.
I agree. Yeah, I like him. He's a good dude.
Yeah. Outside of that, I got nothing. So let's bring it around home.
All right. The Aptorian loped along easily through the sand on Kalam's left. He was happy for the storm, as every time he saw the beast, it rubbed him the wrong way. He had dealt with demons before in battle, as enemies and allies. When they appeared, his only goal was survival, even if that meant he knew demons could be killed. He had seen them dead on the battlefield before, but only a fool would try to take one on purpose. He thought only two types of people died in battle, fools and the unlucky. Taking on a demon was foolish and unlucky. Looking back at the Aptorian was difficult on Kalam's eyes. Even looking too long made him nauseous. This was no gift from the Shaikh, he thought. With the whirlwind unleashed, he knew Drajana would not simply use an Aptorian as an escort. Therefore, he could not trust the Aptorian. He tried to ditch the creature, leaving camp early, racing into the storm. It was hopeless. The Aptorian could outrace any creature in speed and endurance. He nicknamed the Aptorian Apt. Though Apt kept its distance from him, he could not lose it. Kalam had left the Panpatsan Hills 6 days earlier, crossing into a new set of hills named the Anabaj, not sure. He was south of Rarkru, and this area was not as familiar to him. He knew there were no tribes here, but he had heard rumors of monsters of some type. The whirlwind had left Rarku the night past, and even though he expected it, it still shook him to the core, and he was afraid he would come to regret what he had done. As he rode, he could feel someone or something following him. He had started to feel it over the last several hours. He knew it was there even though he couldn't see it, and he knew it involved sorcery, as the horse's prints faded almost instantly and the wind carried their scent ahead, not behind. Suddenly the wind stopped. He looked behind him and saw a wall of the storm, stationary. He walked another dozen paces ahead and looked again. Apt had not emerged yet. He felt his nerves tick and grabbed his crossbow. His horse panicked. Kalam dropped the crossbow and went for his knives as he tucked and rolled to the ground. It was a large desert wolf staring down at him. He jumped towards the wolf, but was hit from his side. It pinned him to the ground, but with his free hand he stabbed it with a knife. He felt its bite release, and it tried to get away from him. As it did, he felt the knife catch on a bone, bent, then snapped. He could hear others fighting, something in the storm. He figured it must have been Apt. His horse had taken off running away. He turned back to the storm and heard no more fighting. Moments later, Apt came forth with blood dripping from it. It looked at Kalam. Kalam said he risked enough without its damn feud. He said treating his wounds would have to wait until they found his horse, but at least he could clean them for now. Apt recoiled back, and Kalam reconsidered his offers. He dropped the broken knife, thinking he had carried the matching set most of his adult life. They seemed to mirror his loyalties, and he wondered which he had lost. He gathered his belongings and headed south, and this time Apt walked a little closer to him. So not the first time in this chapter that we lose a knife. I don't know if there's anything significant to it, but just something I had noticed.
Well, also at the beginning of this chapter, remember how Beneth spins the knife twice and it lands
Oh,
point
yeah.
at him?
Yeah.
So I think that is foreshadowing his death. And the fact
Bennett's
that,
death?
yeah, and the fact that Felzen lost a knife and Kalam now has a broken knife.
I like the Benneth idea with the knife spinning back to him. I guess I don't know how Fallison and Kalam losing knives, I guess, tie into that, but like I said, I do agree. I think he's probably dead, likely dead.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I don't know. I'm assuming that these desert wolves are the Rylandris, right? Because he was a wolf, Diaper,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and he said he was
And they
going after Shaik, wasn't
and
it,
they
or
had
was it somebody
yeah.
else?
No, you were
No,
right.
it was.
Vicarium and Mappo told them about the Aptorian they had saw. and that it was a pet to Shaik. And Rylandris was like, I don't care.
He didn't even know who Sheik was.
Right.
So yeah, I would agree with that. I think it must be Ryandris.
Yeah, I guess I don't know what to make of Kalam and the Aptorian here.
They're an
Like,
unlikely duo, I feel like.
I feel like the Aptorian, well, we know it was released from Shadow Throne. So don't you think it's a little suspicious that it seems like Kalam has entered the eye of the whirlwind, so to speak, right? Like you've got the whirlwind kind of, I imagine, circling around him. He's in this clarity, this eye of the storm, so to speak, which I'm assuming is probably the heart of Raraku. So a spy from Shadow Throne is accompanying Kalam. So thus, I don't know. I mean, clearly it was sent out to be some type of spy, and I feel like it's doing exactly that. So yeah, I don't know.
I don't even feel like a spy is the right word because it's not like he's hiding. It's just like an observer, really. I
Right.
mean, like it's yes, has the same purpose as a spy, but yeah, he's not being very sneaky about it. It's
No, no, no. Terrible hitman.
just this big dumb thing that can kill things.
But yeah, there's so much mysteriousness to it.
Yeah,
I almost say that like Shaik's soul shifted into the Aptorian in some way, shape, or form. Like I'm just getting that type of vibe from it. That Aptorian is somebody in disguise.
you cannot trick me, Justin, because if I agreed to that, then I would be giving up on my theory that the Shaik will be back, that she'll be
I mean,
resurrected.
maybe that's how she's resurrected.
Well, I guess we will have to wait and see.
Yeah, yeah. But just there's so many. Just this chapter was amazing. I really liked everything about this chapter. It was fun to read over and over again.
Yeah, well, I read it once. I mean, it was fun to read that one time, and I wish I could have got through it again because I feel like I suffered for it a little bit. Things were not as fresh in my mind. So
Maybe just read some, or skim it. Read the sections you didn't summarize. I'm sure those are probably the ones that you're a little iffy about because
yeah,
when you summarize it, you almost get moments of clarity there too. So yeah.
that's true.
So maybe just reread the sections you didn't summarize, and you should be fine.
Yeah, I got to remember to bring my book with me. That's all.
Yeah, that's
usually,
fair.
usually I'm pretty good about it, but yeah, last week was kind of a mess. So
Well, it'll be another 3.5 hour episode. We started this at what, 4:30?
somewhere around there, maybe a hair
Yeah,
before that,
later. Yeah,
somewhere in that neighborhood.
that's okay. I feel like it's nothing now.
Yeah, it goes fast.
Yeah, it's more the editing that takes forever.
Yeah, well,
But after that one episode, like editing seems like it goes much quicker now.
I bet. Well, we'll have chapter 7 to read here, which looks like it's 30, 35 pages, something like that. So that'll be good to dig into and see what we got next.
Right. Hopefully, answers are revealed and we get a answer to our pie theory.
I hope so. I
Wouldn't
wonder
that
when
be
that's
something?
coming.
It's
Yeah.
not going to happen until the end of the book. You know it, right? Like,
I-
but hey, I guess what a good way to end the season. A pie to your face, right?
to one of our faces.
No, yours.
Well, you're confident now.
Yeah, yep. I feel like there's enough here. I feel like there's enough to sway for my position than it is yours.
I feel the opposite.
Oh God, just think of all of our listeners laughing at us like you dumb bitches.
Well, I mean, one of us is clearly right and the other's clearly wrong, so we just gotta wait and see.
Yeah. All I ask is if I end up being pied, please don't break my nose.
Yeah, don't worry. You can break my nose if you want. It's not gonna make
I'm
me
not
look any worse.
You'll be fine.
Just kidding. I just sorry, as we're talking, we got a text that our kids do not have school tomorrow, so maybe that'll be following soon for yours with the weather.
Oh, maybe.
Not related at all, but that just came
No
through.
worries. Well, cool. I guess I guess I don't have any other comments for this last section here. Pretty mysterious. I don't really know what to make of any of it yet. I feel like there's something there. I just don't know what.
Yeah, and well, at least now we can finally read again.
Right.
So that'll be good. I don't know if that'll start it tonight or not. We'll see.
No, I probably won't. I left my book at work.
Yeah, that's going to be a challenge for you then.
A little bit. I do have the hardback copy.
Oh, well, there you go. So you got options.
Yeah, that's true. But
Well,
I guess cool. Great episode, dude.
yeah, it was a good one. It went by quick. So can't wait to do it again.
Me as well. Me as well. But yeah, I guess enjoy the rest of your night, sir.
Yeah, and maybe just again here at the end, I'll throw this out. If you enjoyed listening to us, maybe consider checking out the Patreon. At least take a look at it and see what you think. And again, if there's something you'd like to see us do, shoot us an email or a Twitter message or comment on YouTube, whatever. Any way you can get a hold of us is fine. Check us out. Look for the socials, and I feel like things are kind of streaky on Twitter. As far as me being active there, but we're around. Check us out.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks for doing that.
Yeah. All right. Well, you have a good night too, buddy.
All right, later, man.
See ya.